Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mike in the Asylum with your hosts, Sydney Cisneros,
Jesse Neto,
Liam Grant,
and Ron Van Buskirk.
Join us tonight as we talk about some of our favorite horror movies. Tonight we're going to be talking about one that I think everyone here really does enjoy. It was my pick for the week. Tonight we'll be talking about Evil Dead 2.
Bastards! You dirty bastards!
Give me back my hand!
I'm going to quote the entire evening.
Yeah, that's pretty. Welcome to the podcast. Just us yelling Bruce Campbell lines everywhere. I didn't quite do as much preparation as I should have, but this movie was directed by Sam Raimi, starring Bruce Campbell, the non-stop duo who could do anything.
Was it directed by Sam Raimi?
I think it was directed by Sam Raimi.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
It was written and directed, but it was co-written with Scott Spiegel.
That's
Scott
what I was
Spiegel.
thinking of.
Now, stall for time, when I look at when this came out, it's back in 1987.
Very good year.
Very good year for movies.
Especially
Because of this movie.
Especially since I was the only one at this table born in
Yes.
87.
Yeah.
Oh, so you were born in 1987?
No, I was born in 81. But I'm just saying, like, I was the only one alive I mentioned.
Guys, you now know how old Ron is?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
God.
there's this really weird thing that happens where we're talking about older horror movies, and we all talk about, when I was a kid and saw it on TV, and then Ron's like, when I was a kid and saw it in theaters.
Which is awesome.
You bastards.
But anyway,
great.
You took my age! Give me back my age!
let's go ahead and give our starting impressions real quick. I love this movie. I love this movie so goddamn much. It's one of my favorites. I know, kind of probably infamously among these people, I always talk about how much I hate horror movies, even though it's not entirely true. This was the first horror movie that I watched that made me actually interested in the genre. I give this really high marks all around the board for almost everything, even stuff that it maybe not really deserves, but because of the way it is, it's so charming and nice. I pass it off to Jesse then.
This is my favorite movie. Full stop.
10?
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Spoilers.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Come at me, bro.
Wow.
This is
Oh,
the first horror movie I ever watched. And this is the reason I love horror movies. This is, I would say, in terms of movies that have shaped me as a human being, this is probably number one.
Is that why you cut your hand off?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I have a chainsaw utensil wherever I go. I'm ready for those deadites, man. You gotta be there. You could all be deadites right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Go to Liam.
See, I really love this movie. This movie is so good. I was a huge fan of the first one, and I would watch that one back to back to back, and I'm like, all right, now I got the second one. This second one, I watched it twice as much. So
I bet it's going to be terrible.
And then with Army of Darkness, there's a little bit of a drop-off, but it's still loved.
Yeah, but Evil Dead 2 is my favorite one.
The drop-off still feels good in that movie, though.
It does.
It's so good.
I watched that so many times.
And it's this is a favorite in my family too. Like me and my stepdad, we can have awesome conversations about this. And then he would have friends who would come by every Halloween and bring weird horror movies, but then they always brought a copy of Evil Dead 2.
Everyone brought their own copy of Evil Dead 2 just in case.
It's like a Bible. If I ran a hotel, you know how there's a Bible in the drawers?
As a
it would
copy
be
of
a copy of Evil Dead 2.
No, I was kind of the same way with when I was a kid or in high school, I should say. I always had a copy of Alien in my backpack just in case for an impromptu movie night. Yeah, I honestly might start doing it with this movie too. Just buy a cheap DVD copy you don't mind breaking.
My holy trifecta is Evil Dead 2, Alien, and The Thing.
So good. Anyway,
that's a good trifecta.
You finished with your thoughts?
Oh yeah,
right.
yeah, I'm done.
Ron's turn.
Okay. I mean, what is there to say about Sam and Bruce? They're I don't know, they're two icons. I love them. I love all their work. I love the fact that Sam always puts Bruce in his stuff. Even in Spider-Man.
It's
yeah. Oh yeah. And so I really love, of course, this movie. And I mean, kind of like how Liam said, the first one I watched a billion times, and it was really hard to watch just part 2 this time, because normally I have to watch them all.
Well, it's funny because part 2 is usually the only one I watch.
It's because to me it makes me feel like you're saying okay, let's watch this movie, but we're going to start at 30 minutes into the movie, and I'm like, okay.
But that's the great thing about this movie. It gives you its own prologue.
Yeah, but I still want to watch it. I'm I want to watch it.
Technically a prologue, technically a previously. I don't know. We'll get into that part a little bit later
But
on.
yes, it is a great movie. I mean, it's up there with like some of my favorites, but I wouldn't say favorite. So not to bash it like at all.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
honestly,
no.
it's going to get high marks. It's not one I would put it out of 10 though.
Gotcha.
But let's go ahead.
Yeah,
and
no,
get the
I
other
would
ones.
call this movie a 10 out of 10 as well. It's
Okay.
not my
We're
favorite
all
movie.
spoiling our numbers.
Well, yeah, because fuck
I
it, 'cause
know.
it's good. If it's
Fuck
not
it.
obvious right now.
If
Oh,
I could, I would give it 11.
It's
But technically, our numbers can change because remember, this dude was standing at like a 3 for Muckman, and they went to a 1 at the end. So I'm
What are
just
you
saying.
talking about? Hey,
We're gonna watch it. And I'm gonna
I
be like,
like
you
to-
know what? Fuck
this
this
movie.
movie.
I like to point it out that, like, you know, you guys were giving like 1s and stuff like that.
He did give like a 7 or something.
Yeah, I
I
did
gave
give
it
it
a
a 7.
2. Thank you very much.
Oh
I
yeah,
can't
But,
remember what I gave it.
I think I'm right.
and in that guidelines, it makes it memorable.
Mhm. So I don't
So
know.
who's laughing now? Who's laughing now?
I wouldn't call
I
this.
see what you did
Oh
there.
god, I wouldn't call this my favorite horror movie. It's definitely up there. It's like as close as you can get to number 1 without actually being number 1 because Alien still has that point, and it's probably just because I watched Alien first.
No.
No, we're talking about horror movies, Ron, not
I
action
know,
movies.
I
If
know.
we're talking
Oh,
about action
wow.
movies, then I'd say T2.
I agree.
No, I
We're
don't-
really getting into it tonight.
Yeah, whatever.
All right.
So I guess right now we'll still go ahead and start with the plot, which admittedly is kind of light in this movie because the plot kind of just feels like, hey, here's the next excuse to get to the next scare.
Yeah. Well, first off, we start with a nice little introduction on what the Necronomicon Ex Mortis is.
Okay, no, I rewatched this movie today. It's called the Necronomicon in Army of Darkness, and it's called the Necronomicon in the TV series Ash vs. the Evil Dead. It's called something else in this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to call it that. We're going to keep calling it the
Ex
Necronomicon.
Mortis.
No, it's got like this weird name at the beginning. It's not. I don't feel like they call it the Necronomicon Ex Mortis. It's the something X something.
Wow.
But we'll just call it the
The
Necronomicon
Necronomicon Ex Mortis.
because it's a
With
better
an
name.
accent.
Maybe. Bound in human flesh, inked in blood. The whole
Back
nine
in the
yards.
days where the seas ran red with blood,
Mhm.
it was good times.
The
There
good
were
old
demons
days.
running around and deadites. Mostly deadites.
Conan.
Conan.
Yes.
Might as well have been.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, it kind of turns into that in the third movie.
It does. So then after that, we get a little thing about Bound in Flesh and all that stuff. We get a nice little intro of the title screen and then a car driving down a tunnel
Mhm.
with Ash and his girlfriend Linda.
The iconic car that I don't remember what it is.
The Delta.
Which-
The
yeah.
Delta. Oh, the
is,
Delta.
which is a little confusing if you've seen the first movie.
Alright, so we might as well get into it now because this is the only part where it really matters. This is a weird pseudo sequel / remake to the first
Yeah.
movie.
I watched a interview with Bruce Campbell where he explained that they did not have the rights to the first movie when making The Evil Dead 2. So because of that, there was a lot of like weirdness where they had to like skirt around the plot of the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this first 5 minutes exists, to give you kind of a primer on like the gist of what happened in the first one before they go full force into being a direct sequel.
So because and if you've watched the series, they actually call back to that several times. They combine
Ash versus the Evil Dead.
Ash versus the Evil Dead. They combine the backstories and they even poke fun at it a little later on in the series.
They even do the same thing in like the PlayStation 2 game.
Yeah,
I didn't
they
play that.
I
It's
played that
really
too.
fun.
We're kind of into the Evil Dead series, if you can't tell, because the story is different in the Evil Dead trading cards. Even
I want to
so.
see the musical.
There's trading cards.
No, there's not. But
Oh,
there is a
man.
musical. There is a musical.
Like that went over my head. I
I
was
bet
like,
you
what?
there are trading cards.
There might be.
Dude, I would buy those.
There's trading cards for everything back then.
That's true.
Anyway,
Even now.
so you see our main character Ash, who's played by Bruce Campbell, and what was his girlfriend's name?
Linda.
Linda. They are on their way up to a cabin, and Linda has some reservations. You know, what if whoever owns it comes back?
He's
Yada,
like,
yada.
"Yeah, don't worry, it'll be fine."
We'll just tell him our car broke down. Yada yada yada. Just a little boyfriend girlfriend preamble. They pull up to the house. They get in. And it's pretty much smash cut right to Bruce
He's playing the piano,
playing the
which will
piano.
come back later,
Mhm.
and having a good time. And she's dancing, which will also come back later. And then they have a little bit of banter back and forth where it's like, "Oh, they're so in love."
But she's pretty.
Oh yeah,
He's
Yeah,
pretty
for now.
for now.
For I mean, I would use it for now, but
And then
that's
he's
off
all like,
topic.
hey, excuse me while I go get us a glass of fine champagne.
Champagne.
And he goes into the next room and he finds like the stuff of the people who own there, the father and the mother, and he sees a picture of who will become a later character, Annie, right?
Mhm.
That's her name.
Probably.
And he also sees an audio tape. And like a stupid motherfucker, he
just
plays
plays
that
it.
audio tape.
He just plays it. And so the audio tape starts playing. It is I don't remember the character's name, but he's some sort of archaeologist. He just got back from a dig somewhere out in Europe, and he finally found it. He found what he considers his personally holy grail. He found the Necronomicon Ex Mortis
And the dagger.
and the dagger. They kind of glance over the dagger at the
They do.
beginning. I always forget about it until it comes back later in the movie.
It's funny because they show it there,
Yeah.
but then for like an hour, it's like whatever,
it's
and then
gone.
it's like someone picks it up
It's
off the table.
Professor
This happens to me every
Nobi.
time I
Nobi.
watch the movies. I'm like, oh, I completely forgot about the dagger. And when I was watching Ash vs. Evil Dead, when they showed it again, I'm like, I completely forgot about the
completely
dagger
forgot about the
again.
dagger.
It's really rad looking. So.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
But
Like a
anyway,
skull.
he Anyway, he plays the tape, and the tape goes on. He kind of gives his little spiel, and then he starts translating it. The guy on the tape starts translating it, and he speaks the words aloud, and that releases the evil into the world.
I don't know.
I don't know. That's the next movie.
So then we see it in the forest, and this is how it is always introduced, where it starts off way away, and we have this awesome like pulling camera shot of.
You never see the evil either, which I really like. It's just a bunch of scary noises and a moving camera.
So it comes up to the the cabin, crashes through the window into Linda, and you hear her go, "Ah!" And then Ash runs out and is like, "Oh my god, where'd you go?" And he drops his champagne.
Champagne.
It's the worst loss
I do
of
want
the
to say
movie.
though that I don't know. Granted, I don't know how many times it comes up like this in movies, but I really like how the evil is released. It's not the character reading it out loud like an idiot.
Which is better than the remake. I don't know how much we
That's
want to go into
true.
that, but I like a lot of the remake. I don't like that he reads the book after it explicitly says, like, do not read everywhere in the
because
title.
that's what I mean though. It's like first off, granted,
people don't normally read what they're
Out
not supposed to.
loud.
well, out loud. But what I mean in particular is granted, I've only seen the remake once, like when
I
it
love
first
the
came out.
I do too.
Um,
It's just if
love
we
it.
compare the reasoning for
Yeah.
how it
I-
starts.
okay,
But
so-
anyway, what I was gonna
we
say
can
was,
compare, but we can't tell them plots and like spoilers for the
dies.
Anyway,
movie.
Including the dog.
because like in the remake though, like is it set up that he's some sort of is the book even written in a weird dead
Yeah.
language?
It's
And is it
wrapped in barbed wire.
Yeah.
and okay, that's pretty rad actually.
Yeah.
And is it set up that whoever reads it can speak these dead languages?
Yes.
Okay.
He's all like, I'm Science Jesus guy.
Oh.
He looks like
No,
Jesus.
well,
Okay.
it's
It's
like,
all
wasn't there
phonological.
sticky notes in the page?
Yeah.
Like someone did it
Sounded
before,
out.
so like
Yeah.
they just
No,
wrote
yeah.
down.
What happens is there were like translated indentions on the page, so he takes a piece of paper and like scratches it out to get the. So he's going through so much effort
Okay, so
in order to read
but,
this.
but again though, like right away, it's straight up. I hate how complex that is.
I
Whereas
know,
this one, it's straight up
but-
him flipping a switch off.
And it's not his fault. Whereas in this one, you're just like smacking the guy across the face, like, "Do not read it, you piece of shit."
Anyway, let's get back.
Oh, I'd read it.
I was about to say Pandora's box is always someone's.
I would
gonna
absolutely
open.
like wrapped in barbed wire
Yeah.
and human flesh. I'd be like, "Damn,
That's pretty
It's like,
metal.
hey,
I don't even know if I'd
it's like,
bother
I
opening it. So
have
I'm gonna
all
set
the
this on my
secrets
coffee
right
table.
over here. Just you have to read it.
Okay,
And you're like,
oh.
all right, well, fuck.
All right, so everyone has like Home Digest on their coffee table. I just keep that
Evil.
right
Yeah,
there.
there you are.
So Linda is taken, and Ash runs out into the forest to try to find her, and he finds her.
Mhm.
Oh, something's happening.
I do actually have
The Necronomicon edition.
as
Yeah.
my
It's
as
a
my
lovely
Reader's
thing
Digest.
for this audio podcast.
Yes.
We got a little book here with a happy face on it, and it's squishy.
so
It's,
squishy.
if any of
Do
you
you
have
wanna
seen
squish
Evil Dead 2, you've probably seen this
Yeah.
version of it.
It's supposed to be made out of
You
human
want to squish
skin.
it?
I'll switch it. For a bit.
It's really squishy.
Anyway, he runs out and chases her.
Finds her.
Finds her.
She's all like, she's all like, "Hey."
Yeah, she gets all evil. Her eyes are all cloudy. Teeth are all big.
And we kill her very quickly.
Yeah, but
Ash doesn't wait very long to
I
be like,
love
"No,
that.
Linda, no."
It's basically smash cut to him hitting her head off, and
Well-
then smash cut to him digging a hole, and then smash cut to the cross being
It's-
put in.
and you.
To be fair, you see her head like reattached to her body.
Later.
I would
Later.
what
Later.
later?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
a silly bitch.
Anyway.
So, I actually want to call out Bruce Campbell's acting right here because it's really good. Because you can see like the trauma in his eyes already. It's like I've just decapitated my girlfriend.
It's super melodramatic, but
in a good way.
But in a good way, like in a realistic way. Whereas again, like lots of heroic characters, movies like this, they just kind of look up at the sky and go, ah.
And this is why Ash is great because he's getting things done.
He's getting things done.
And so this is where we have the end of Evil Dead 1 and the beginning of officially Evil Dead 2.
Well, and one thing I wanted to bring up is the first Evil Dead, while it was still campy,
I love the first one.
it was still, but it was like slightly more serious.
Oh, I was very scared by it.
Yeah, but then like I
that
like
part where like the girl raises up and goes, "Nightmares before you, one by one."
The part where they're singing.
I was like,
but like what I wanted to bring up though is like that scene. That scene where he kills his girlfriend, like that's like really comedic editing and timing, and so it sets up the tone for this movie right away. That's a bit sillier.
I will say that Evil Dead 2, I think, is one of the best blends of horror and comedy I've ever had. Because a lot of it is laugh out loud funny, but there are parts in it where I'm like,
it invented a new genre. They call it splat stick.
I love it.
Yeah, it's the best.
So we get another POV shot of Evil like smashing through the back of the cabin and up to Ash, where he turns around and screams very hilariously.
Again,
and that's
comedic.
where the first movie ended. But now we see it pick him up and do this amazing, awesome shot as he's like thrown through like a mile of forest, like 20 feet in the air. And I think how they did this is they had like a suspension on like a truck.
Yeah,
and they were just like,
and they're literally just
him.
pulling him.
It was great. And they smack him into a tree and he falls down into a puddle and he's like face down and you see bubbles coming up like blurp.
He gets back
and
up.
he's like, oh my god, he's dead. But then no, he's not.
He gets back up, and surprise, surprise, he is possessed. His eyes are all
He's a
cloudy.
deadite.
His face.
The
is
makeup
all
is
messed
so
up.
good.
I know, dude.
And my
Freaks
favorite
me
thing.
out.
My favorite thing is whenever he's possessed, his chin grows like 3 sizes.
Yeah.
But
He has a really good face for like exaggeration.
I actually like the wetness of his hair.
Yeah.
Too.
And the pale eyes.
Yes.
and he's kind of walks around rambling a little bit, but then lucky for him, the sun rises and drives the evil away.
He's all like, no. Oh yeah, praise
Praise
the
the
sun.
sun.
Praise the sun.
He and so he kind of snaps out of it at that point.
Uh-huh.
He's like, I get the fuck out.
Yeah, just right away. He's like, I gotta get out of here.
So he jumps in his car and drives away, but he's not going to get away that easy.
The bridge is out.
The bridge that he came
I
across
know.
is like
It's
twisted
like
up
twisted-
into a
I know.
hand.
I love that's one of my favorite things. It's like it's twisted up in the hand. Like the bridge should just fall out. Like anyone can look at it. Like you call the cops for this because this is obviously some sort of act of vandalism or terrorism or something.
My favorite part of this is like how you said the melodrama of him like getting out of the car. No, smashing his hand on the hood like no, damn it, no.
And you get this really amazing scene later because he thinks to himself, "All right, I gotta clear my head. I gotta calm down. I gotta take care of this before nightfall." But then like time starts speeding up. And the sun starts moving faster.
And
I
it's
gotta
a
say,
really cool
well,
shot.
no, because when I first saw it, I thought like, oh, that's a pretty lame shot. Like it's a hold on, 1 second, let me finish my freaking thought, Jesse.
God damn, Jesse.
He like I thought it was just going to be like the generic time lapse of the sun, and not even a very good one because the camera is obviously jumping around because it gets bumped or whatever. But then it pulls out, and you see Bruce Campbell. I bet he's standing in front of a green screen.
Oh yeah.
And there's this really great shot of him watching the sun speed down, and it turns up like it takes that like effect and scene from like a 2, makes it like an 8. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. I love it.
And so we get a shot from the evil again down below in the canyon as it crawls up, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And he gets back into his car and starts driving away, and it starts chasing after the car. And we have a nice little chase.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun.
The Benny Hill music.
Yeah,
It might as well be playing at that point.
He wrecks.
Yep.
Smashes out the front.
He knocks himself out hard
Then
too.
they do a really cool shot of the evil still coming, and it crashes through the front the
back window
of the car and keeps
then
going
through the front.
Oh
That is
yeah,
that is
I forgot
impressive
about that.
even today.
Well, no, but I love that because it's super impressive. But like you see these you see like the behind the scenes, and they literally just took a camera and they put a 2x4 on the camera, like right out of frame, and they just rammed the camera into windows.
I love low budget filmmaking.
It's the best, and it looks really
If
good.
it's done right.
Right. Sydney has like
Buckman.
Hey, the Buckman is still pretty good.
I don't know if Sydney has said this on the podcast, but he has a theory where like trials and tribulations make a movie better.
Oh yeah, no,
Like the original Star Wars is great because things were going wrong.
Art-
it was like an
art-
out there
We'll
thing.
say art versus adversity, or art through adversity, I should say, has been like a thing forever.
And like the first two Evil Deads really showcase that off.
And then and again, to bring up Star Wars, I know we're getting to a thing like George Lucas was told no all the time when making the original trilogy. He was just some low budget wannabe director. He was constantly getting told no. But then you get to the prequel trilogy, and literally everyone's saying yes and patting him on the back when he says the dumbest things.
No in the prequel.
Not enough. Not enough. It rhymes, Jesse. It's like poetry.
I think that's fair.
No, the prequels are made like butter, so the critics can cut it down.
Anyway,
If we want to keep this a horror podcast, let's stay away from
no,
Star
like
Wars.
we keep
Star
talking.
Wars.
We keep talking
I
about
have a
the Star
really
Wars
hard time
rant.
with that, Rob.
I know.
We're gonna have the Star Wars rant podcast eventually.
So he runs off, like he gets up after he's crashed through the front windshield, and he starts running for the cabin. And now we get one of my favorite shots in the movie, and basically any shot ever, because the evil is still chasing him, and it's right on his ass as he bursts through the door of the cabin. He closes it, it bursts through, and keeps on chasing him. And he's like, "Oh shit!" And he keeps going, and he's like ducks through this way, and he keeps following. He's like, "Oh shit!" And he's like ducks under here and closes that there, and it keeps coming, and you're just following this one long continuous shot.
Was it
Of
people-
which-
Go ahead.
Of which you could see the gymnasium ceiling.
Yeah,
I knew
was
it.
talking about
I knew
that. I missed it.
I didn't notice it at all until we were talking about this movie last week, and you brought it up. You could totally tell.
Oh yeah, several times.
Now you can't unsee it.
But I still love it.
I still love it.
And he finally like gives it the slip, and then it like it's great because the evil, you're from its point of view, and at one point it kind of looks around like,
It's
where'd it go?
It's
Where'd
the
it
most
go?
comedic
Where'd
thing
it go?
ever, and then it just flies away.
This is the start of where I have a really love relationship with the Deadites, because I can't tell if they're terrifying or totally incompetent.
Well, because it's like I go back. I like my characters to have a little bit of personality, and they do. Like
the Deadites have a lot of
what
personality.
could be generic possessed zombie things, they have a lot of personality, and they're a blast. Especially when the stories get a little goofier later on. People talk about great one-shot tracking
This
shots.
is probably my favorite.
It's really good. And that's the thing, is it gets overlooked a lot. Like it's no dinner scene from was it Goodfellas where that happens?
I've never seen Goodfellas.
Anyway, like there's a really great one where it's the main character and his girlfriend going into like this underground restaurant. You get this great single shot of them going through the kitchen and through everything. It's amazing. I like this one more because it's like I keep saying, because it shouldn't exist in a movie like this. The cinematography of this movie shouldn't be as good as it is. And I'm kind of a sucker for good cinematography.
So then he peeks out of the
cellar.
And is this where we see his Linda come back?
I think he kind of wanders around a little bit, and then he sits down, and then he hears no, because he gets out, he wanders around a bit, and then he hears the piano playing.
Oh, that's right, because the Deadites are like starting to taunt him. Because before it was like, we're going to possess you. Now it's like, we're just going to...
Which is really good, because the specifics are really good, because it's not playing, it's just kind of hitting keys at this point. But then he walks into the back room and opens the door, and as soon as he opens the door, it starts playing the song he was playing at the beginning of the movie.
This is the part where that I would say that's like, it's less funny and more like genuinely like scary, because you're just like, ugh. And so then he looks out the window and sees Linda's backing up, not looking very well.
Stop motion Linda.
Yep, she doesn't have the head, and her body is like already rapidly decayed,
which is obviously due to
taller.
the evil.
Yeah,
she
taller.
looks
And
taller.
the stop motion makes it creepy. The like way of its moving is creepy,
that's what
where
I
it's
was
like
gonna
it
say,
doesn't care, and then the head rolls up back onto it, and then she's like talking to him and taunting to him, and it's like, my God, that would be so horrifying.
Yeah, dude, that looked really creepy.
Yeah.
But it
But
ended with like something I thought was hilarious when she
she's
leaps
like,
off
"Whee!"
it. Yeah, whee! And
When
like,
it's like a
fades
ballerina.
out, and Bruce Campbell like looks around and like, did that just happen?
Because I love like Jesse's talking about how this scene's so creepy, and it's creepy. And while her jumping away is kind of silly, it's still like, oh, that's a nice way to cap off scene, and then immediately goes right back to Goofy, where he's looking out the window, and all of a sudden her head pops up, and she says something, reaches in with her like bony little skeleton stick hands that Bruce Campbell is obviously
What?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, anyway, Bruce Campbell is obviously holding onto his head and smashing it himself in the head into the window frame.
Yeah,
I
that's great.
love this
And then he
movie.
wakes up in a chair because it was all just a
it was
dream.
all in his
But
head.
no, it wasn't, because she's back.
But then you get to again like one of the most genuine things ever of him freaking out in the chair and squirming. It's almost painful to watch sometimes.
And I think that's when he's woken back up, but then the head appears and is like, hey, and then bites him on the hand, which is great, because then we start getting the slapstick of him just bashing the head
Smashing the head
into
against the
everything
walls
that is
and
available
trees
to him.
and whatever.
Oh, it's so much
I
fun.
And then he
loved
put-
even watching him like run to the tool shed and he's slipping, but like you still hear the mouth growling. He's like
and you can tell it hurts him, but he's more annoyed than anything at this point because he's like, God damn it, let go.
Well, that's my favorite thing about the characters. He could just shrug off anything. He still hurts, obviously, but he shrugs off everything. It's like, man, this sucks.
Smashes her into a tree, then you're right, runs into the tool shed, sees like a vice immediately, and he's like, oh, I got you now. He sticks her in the vice and tightens it up and pulls his hand away. It's like, okay, we got a good time. Now I'm going to get the chainsaw, pulls the curtain back.
Uh-oh.
The chainsaw's gone. That's a problem.
No, it's pretty great, though, because, of course, the effect when it's just a head is kind of terrible, because it's obviously just a mannequin head.
Oh, I don't mind.
But, no, I don't mind either. Because, again, I like this movie for what it is. But the effect of her head in the vice
It's really good.
is really good. Like, and,
You guys ever question like how he was? He knew where everything was, even though this was a cabin. He shows up too,
a little bit.
Well,
because he's like moving things.
The
like,
way-
this
the
is-
way-
here's what my head does. Because given that what we talked about at the beginning of this movie, all of Evil Dead 1 happened.
Yeah.
So they were in this cabin for a lot longer than what is shown in the beginning of this movie.
Okay.
So
Also,
I could understand it.
And even just judging by this movie on its own, he knows about the cabin. I'm surprised if he went up there a couple times with just his friends before the book and everything got there, you know? So it's not too surprising.
Plus, you're forgetting, Ron, there's the universal shed law. If you have a tool shed, you all have to put them in the
In the exact
if
same
you're
spot.
fighting zombies, everyone's chainsaw is free.
You know who else had a shed that understands the tool shed law, Ron?
Leatherface.
That too. I was thinking of someone else too.
Michael Myers?
Shut up, City.
or the house of whoever Michael Myers attacked?
I was gonna go to Hans, but all right.
God,
shit.
diggity damn it. So we hear the chainsaw and the door bursts open and you get this awesome mannequin of like Linda's headless body just running in with the
The
chainsaw.
chainsaw is basically taped to the hand, and someone's underneath it with a stick waving it up and down.
And then he blocks the chainsaw with the crowbar, and it comes back and starts digging into the body,
I
and
love this
that
part.
like head and black blood is just spewing into his face, and he's like, ah!
All right, and you get to one of my favorite scenes, like, because it's still here. He picks up the chainsaw and he goes to saw the head of his girlfriend, who at this point is like, looks human again, to try to taunt him and like
She's
make him
crying.
and then when he starts crying and hesitates, she comes back as a demon. It's like,
That's why I really love the Deadites, is because they're just so mean.
They're
They're not like demons where they're just like demonic all the time. It's like, no, they want to fuck with you. They want to make you have that glimmer.
They
of
want to
hope.
make you feel scared, and they want to hurt your feelings too.
Yeah.
And that is important because they do possess the memories.
But you
like
get
birth
to-
dates.
They
and all
just
that
want
stuff.
you to suffer.
Yeah,
But you get one of my favorite bits too, where like you get this really great shot of like the silhouette and shadow of Bruce Campbell getting ready to saw it. Now I don't know if you guys have noticed this. They put a mask or a prosthetic on him to make his chin look even bigger in the shadow, like cartoon proportion,
What are
like
you talking about?
like,
That's his chin.
like a Gaston coming off of his face. And it's the best. And then he starts
One fights like this.
he starts sawing the head, and you get another really great, like, cinematography. I don't even know if it's cinematography. You get another great shot where blood splatters on the light bulb and everything turns red.
Yeah, it's great. So is this what happens next? Do they cut to Annie?
Now, like his hand starting right. Is
Not
can't
yet,
remember what happens.
because I feel like here is when they cut the first time you cut to the other folks.
Yep.
And the plane's landing.
Oh, yeah,
It was
that's right.
so weird to see something that wasn't the cabin.
Yeah.
At this part.
Yeah, it's
I kind of love that it's like taking you away for like a breather of a moment, and then you come back and Ash is like, "Oh my god!"
because it's the one breather he has. Because I think right before it cuts, I think he walks to the cabin and sits down.
So yeah, it's Nobi's daughter Annie.
Mm-hmm.
And
She shows up with a little plaque full of pages from the Necronomicon that were not with it originally,
yeah,
and she shows up with, I don't know his name.
He's literally the.
Ed Gently.
Well,
This is one of my favorite movies, and you don't
He
know
is
his name.
literally the most least important character in cinema history.
I like to call him Sweater.
Sweater Man.
Yeah. I like to call
There's
him
an
Sweater.
ear on the back of this. I
It's
just
pretty
know
great.
this.
Blonde
awesome.
mullet man. Anyway, they have
Blonde
some
mullet man.
exposition like, oh, we're gonna go up to my dad's cabin, and
I haven't heard from you, Dad, in a week.
There's
because
no phone at the
phones up
cabin.
there. Oh, that's convenient.
it'll take us an hour to get there.
And then we come back to Ash, who is having a great time.
Sitting down, trying to relax.
Is this where the hand starts starts
Yes,
laughing?
this is
Or
where-
is this where the laughing starts?
No, because the laughing happens a little bit later on. What
Yeah,
happens
what-
here is he looks into the mirror.
Yes. Well, first he
Oh,
like.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Wait. Okay, I know.
Alright.
I know the order now.
Okay,
He's
we
got
figured
the
it out.
chainsaw.
yes.
But then he like ditches the chainsaw because he finds the shotgun on top of the mantle.
Yeah.
He starts
Loads the
putting in the
shotgun.
bullets and stuff. And this is another one of my favorite scares of the movie, where he like looks around the corner and there's a creaking chair
The
just
rocking
rocking
chair.
back and forth. And he's slowly approaching, sticks out his hand, and like where he would be grabbing like someone's arm or something, it stops,
Mhm.
and he just like can't even. Like he literally makes the I can't even.
He
gesture.
he
And he
freaks out. He
drops
drops
the
the shotgun,
shotgun.
and this is when he runs up to the mirror. You get the great shot of like the back of his head and him looking into the mirror, and he's like, "You're okay. You're okay. You're okay."
You're fine.
And then his reflection jumps out, grabs onto his shoulders. You just killed your girlfriend.
And you think that's
Yes,
fine?
We're not fine. We're not okay, buddy.
And I love this because it's like the reflection is like Sydney was saying earlier, like exaggerated. Like they've increased his like brows and his chin and his nose.
they sunk his eyes in,
Yeah.
to make him look a little bit more. 'Cause he looks in the reflection. He looks more like he does when he's
This
possessed.
is Evil Ash.
Yep.
Good Ash, good Ash, bad Ash. Good or bad, I'm the one with the gun.
Boom.
Anyway, and so this is another great bit because it's literally like great low budget filmmaking. It's literally just because like it's obviously the way they do this is there is no mirror there.
Mhm.
It's like
And there's some
basically a hole in the
Bruce
wall.
Campbell stand-alike and Bruce Campbell.
I'm pretty sure it's Ted Raimi.
I
I'm,
probably
well, it's like-
Oh,
I'm
probably
pretty
is.
sure because my theory is every time you see a character in this movie and you
It's
don't see their
Ted
face,
Raimi.
it's Ted Raimi. Because I remember, I could be wrong. I could be thinking of someone else, but I'm pretty sure it's Ted Raimi with a wig on,
Uh-huh.
and then Bruce Campbell is in the mirror,
Oh, that's great.
and then you get like a split film when they're looking at each other in the face,
Yep. So he freaks out,
and then this is when his hand,
the hand starts acting up. Like you see,
the
black veins start
Yeah, but-
growing.
yeah.
the
across,
nails grow out,
and it starts like.
grabs onto his face.
Which okay, again to give props to Bruce Campbell. This whole podcast is giving props to Bruce Campbell. But
I'll
really,
give props-
this is incredible
Okay.
physical acting of like
Yeah.
try to do that. That's hard to make it
Yeah.
actually look like.
and
your
it's
hand
not
is
just that;
fighting
it's
you.
subtle stuff too, where like it grabs onto his face and he goes but then it's kind of subtle, but you can see one of the fingers poke his eye,
and he's
and,
like,
and then he goes again.
It's so funny.
And this is where the greatest slapstick of all time starts, where they just like dart into the kitchen, and he starts like trying to drown it, and then
Puts
that
his hand
doesn't
under cold water. I actually think I don't know if you guys were bit by a snake before.
work. He's like, I'll just get to vet about.
Well, it was because like I haven't either, I should
Uh-huh.
say. But that's one of the things they tell you is like if you have like poison in your hand or foot or whatever, run it under cold water because that stops it spreading.
Well,
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work because it's not poison. His hand's possessed.
So it starts grabbing plates and smashing them into his head.
No, because I
That's
love it because it
hilarious.
stops first, but then
Uh-huh.
he like passes out because obviously he's exhausted by
Right.
this point, so he passes
Oh,
out.
yeah, because then that's when
No, he's passed out over the sink, like hunched over, and then he
Oh.
crawls over to the plates.
Oh,
starts
yeah, that's right.
smashing it in the face.
And it's like he's such a good actor in the scene because he's selling every single one of those hits, making it looks like it's just hurting.
Well, here's the
he's
thing, though.
kicking his ass.
One of my problems with this movie is the horrible ADR.
Oh, it's awful.
Like he's giving the most gut wrenching screams ever in the
And his
scene.
face is totally
His
like-
mouth doesn't move. It almost looks like he's wearing a mask.
Uh-huh.
He's not, but it looks like it.
So yeah, and the ADR throughout the whole thing is kind of
It's
off.
pretty bad.
And so smashes his head in, and then he falls.
I gave it a 10.
When you love a movie,
When you love a movie,
when you love
you
a
know
movie.
everything that's
Yes,
wrong with
yes.
it.
It's
I
like
will stand by that.
It's like when Jesse and I talk about Star Wars. We love Star Wars, but then we're like,
I will
remember
beat
that
the
scene
shit out
where
of
that-
Star Wars.
Well, do you remember that scene where that really stupid thing happens that literally no one has ever noticed? I hate that part.
So he falls down to the ground and he's passed out. And this is where the hand is like looking around and sees a butcher knife along
Oh, yeah.
the floor. And then it's
This
like,
is where he's
eh,
like
eh,
pulling his whole
eh,
body.
No, because it's even better because the hand is like scrolling and it grabs another plate and then it literally goes, and that's when it sees the
So
butcher
good.
knife.
The hand was shocked for the listening audience.
Yeah, because it just kind of goes, whoa, baby, it's basically, and then it starts trying to drag Bruce's body towards the cleaver.
So good.
Very, very strong hand.
Oh, it's great. And
Oh.
then when it's just about to reach it, knife through the hand.
Oh.
And it gives that little screech like,
Bruce Campbell, he's got the knife in his, pinning it to the ground, And
He's
it's
like,
great
"I
because
gotcha."
he looks like he's about to cry, and like he's obviously in so much pain. But then he says, "Who's laughing now?"
And then he finds the chainsaw, and then he's like, "Who's laughing now?"
while he's simultaneously laughing and screaming in horrible agony.
So much blood is spraying into his face. It's beautiful.
Not to mention his mouth too.
Yeah, he's
Gosh,
full
man.
like. Whoa.
And he picks up the hand. He goes back into the living room. He throws it on the ground, grabs a bucket. He tells the hand, "This is your new home now." And he sets the bucket on the hand, and then he puts a bunch of books on top. Did any of you happen to notice the name of the book?
I love the name of the book.
The name
so
of
much.
the book is it's a very famous piece of classic literature. It is Farewell to Arms.
Okay. So he's like wrapping up his like
His stump.
Actually, it's not bleeding that much anymore.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
Well, and obviously he's just got a fist because it's weird how like his arm is still the same length.
Star Wars does the same thing.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
So he hears a noise, looks over, and the can is like tipped over, and he's like, "Oh, shit!" And he picks up the gun. He's like, "What'd you get, you little bastard?"
Mm-hmm.
And we forgot the line where he's like, "Give me back my
Give me
hand."
back my hand. I quoted at the beginning, so
Yeah,
it's fine.
we're fine.
Yeah,
So is this where it's like crawling through like the mouse
crawling
traps?
through the walls, and he's trying to shoot it through the walls.
It's like taunting him for a second. He's like, "Oh, I'm about to shoot you," but then it like takes a step over, and like a
It's
mouse
hot
trap
mouse
gets one of
traps.
his fingers, and
He's like,
this guy was like, "Ha!"
And then the hand peeks out and flips him off.
You know what's so good? I watched this with subtitles, and the hand actually has lines.
What?
Yeah, like the hand says "motherfucker" and then gets shot.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
it starts crawling away into the wall, and he's trying to listen for it. And he shoots it and sees like blood coming out of the wall. He's like, "Gotcha, little bastard!" And then more blood starts coming out, and he's like, "Oh no!"
Well, he
then
leans
more
in to
blood.
take a look.
oh no!
And then a fire hose of blood just sprays him down.
From
so
there
good.
and several other places in the wall. It
I
is-
was telling Sid earlier tonight before the podcast. That's what I love is the over excessive blood use. Like
It's like there's lots
there's
of
like
movies
no
that do
way
it.
a human body could possess that much, but you know they allow it.
and then after the blood goes away, after a few seconds, he's
Oh,
not
huh.
really that
I
wet
I
or
just
that red.
yeah, and I just wanted to bring this up real quick because it's one of my great things. As we mentioned before, this was filmed in the local high school of like where Sam Raimi and all of them lived. That scene there, apparently from what I've read, like it made a way bigger mess than they intended to, and it was filmed over summer break, so no one was there. They were basically just given free roam of this small town high school. That makes way bigger mess than they ever could have expected. They didn't clean it up in time, and so it left this massive stain all over the gym floor. Apparently, whatever fake blood they were using, because it was in the middle of summer in this hot ass high school gym, started reeking like crazy.
Oh no!
And basically, like the people at the high school were like, you know what, we're never letting anyone film here ever again.
To be fair, it probably wouldn't have come up. So
Mhm.
You know what's so funny? Shawshank Redemption did the same thing. Not at a local school,
Mhm.
but like the set smells like cocoa for like ever after that one scene in Shawshank.
Oh, it's amazing.
So what happens next?
Like you said, the blood flies off of him. And you said that he's really dry and kind of. I feel like that's meant because it's more of like a hallucination thing.
Yeah. Well, there are times later where
Yeah.
it's like the
But,
blood stains don't really
Yeah,
follow.
that's where it doesn't follow logic. But anyway, he's exhausted. He goes to sit down in the chair, and the chair shatters out from underneath him.
Yes, this is my favorite scene.
The best scene in the whole movie.
where he's crashed down. He hears a snicker, and he looks over, and there was a deer head here the whole time, and it just looks over at him
And starts
wait. It looks over at him. And there's like a good solid like 2 seconds where like nothing happens, and then it just
It starts laughing its ass off.
like
And
having
then-
a great time.
But he stands up and he gets ready to shoot the deer head, and then,
the lamp starts
laughing. And he turns around, and then all the furniture and all the books and all the bookshelves start laughing at him.
and everything's moving, and then he turns to the camera and starts laughing
and
too.
he starts laughing, and he's
good.
prowling around. He's pointing at the bookshelves.
and they're both doing little dance.
Oh
up and
yeah,
down.
that's my favorite part with the lamp
lamp.
just going.
And then it stops, and it's like ah.
Well, okay, yeah, and then like they both stop at the same time, and like they start laughing, point at the lamp. But it's great because right about here he starts laughing and just starts screaming.
Yeah, he starts. He's like ah.
And then in the middle of all the noise, all of a sudden the noise just stops, and you hear a little tiny tap outside the front door, and then
Oh,
that
shit,
means,
we missed
that
the
means
scene,
we
yep.
missed the scene.
So before this, at some point,
It doesn't really matter when.
Yeah. Well, we do this even when we have notes.
Yeah, we
That
do
was
it all.
bad.
We do it all the time. It's kind of our thing.
We find Hillbilly Cletus is just like sitting by the bridge. I
That
don't know.
scene. Oh my gosh! I was like,
It's
what
super.
scene are you
It's
talking about?
one of the
Where-
most important scenes because it introduces the other two characters of the
Oh
movie.
yeah, that's
Bob and
right.
Joe.
And Jake.
Jake. Okay, good.
But they enlisted them. They were locals, right? They
Yep.
enlisted
Well,
them.
they were. I don't know what they were doing.
I
Because-
think Jake is like a maintenance guy. Like he
See,
probably
I thought
works
that
on the
too, but I
road.
also have dealt with the possibility that he's doing this just to be a dick,
Maybe.
and he's like trying to because they go along, and they have no reason to do that if they're just maintenance workers. So I think like he somehow knows about this family, and is all like, "Hey, I can take it."
No, I think.
civic duty.
Well, I think he's like a maintenance worker, and his girlfriend just tagged along because it's late at night. Or whatever.
Yeah, she just tagged along.
But then like because he just kind of wants Jake. He just kind of wants to be done with it and go home. Like Billy
But
Joe is the
no,
one
because
that's
he
like,
like offers money.
Am
well, no,
I-
because Bobby Joe's the one who makes the offer though.
Yeah, but he's really cool with that. He's like, "Hey, hey, hey, hey."
What wasn't it the reason they were there? Wasn't it because Annie enlisted them because the bridge was out and they needed?
No,
locals
Yeah,
to
they
help?
were there
that
already
happens-
though.
Oh,
that
okay.
happens after. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because she's all like, "Well, there has to be some other road," and he's like, "Well, there's an old trail up there."
Oh,
And,
okay. That's right. That's right.
And then he's like, "I could take it for some $45." And then she's like, "Oh, well, I'll take it. I'll give you $100 if you take my bag." And he's like,
Because
because
he thinks it's a little
he
purse
looks
or
in the
something.
back and sees the bag, and he's a piece of shit, and I love him. So that's happening. There's another cut back to them at some point where they're trekking through the forest, and he's got this big old suitcase on his back. He's like, "I thought it was the one in the back."
And anyway, so this is where we get back to where we left off. All the last thing just happened.
Here's the noise at the door.
And he just, without hesitating, unloads both barrels at the door. And you just hear a little, ah!
And then he opens the door, looks out, sees nothing, and only as he's coming back is he tackled by Jake, who beats the shit out of him after Ash beats the shit out of him first.
And then cashmere sweater guy with blonde hair.
Was I
pops up.
blonde
I'm
hair?
gonna, I'm gonna call him Fred because he seems very Fred-like.
Yeah, he seems like a friend.
This is gone. So,
I was thinking more of Scooby Doo Fred.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
think.
Yeah.
So they all get in and they're like, "Where's?" Annie gets in and she's like, "Where's me
Well,
mom
first
and
off,
pa?"
Jake knocks him the fuck out.
Oh yeah, he's down. And then Bobby Joe comes in and she's been like grazed.
She's grazed,
She
yeah.
hasn't been shot. She's been grazed. And then Annie comes in and is like, "What's happened here?" And then she looks over and sees the chainsaw.
She's the
covered
blood.
in blood.
She's the blood everywhere.
What did you do to my parents? And that kind of wakes him up a little bit, but not enough. And they're just like, "I got an idea. Let's throw him in the cellar." And so they just start dragging him. He's like, it was a mistake.
Yeah, no, because they're dragging him, and all he could say is, "I've made a huge mistake. I've made a huge mistake." And then they just go, "Yes, fuck you have."
They Sparta kick him into the cellar, and you hear he doesn't hit every step, but you hear sound effects like he's going down all the way.
But you do get like a pretty brutal shot of him, like his feet are in the air, his back is arched, and he's just bumping down the steps, and he flips.
It's
Pretty
pretty great.
hear. Oh well, then you saw, or like, that's when they find out from the tapes. Or,
Yeah,
or
they-
for the,
Well, first they
yeah.
patch Bobby Joe a little bit.
Then they
and
do like a little investigating,
and she turns on the tapes and hears that, and this is where we get like the whole shebang of what the father did. And he's like, "Oh, your mother was possessed, and I dismembered her, and I didn't have. Oh no, I didn't have the heart to
I didn't
dismember
have
her."
the heart.
So I put her in the fruit cellar.
Yeah, and then
I
everyone's
love
like, "Oh shit!"
I love that zoom in on Bruce Campbell when he's listening with like a rat
Yeah, he's
next
just
to him, and then it's like you see the rat go, "Oh shit!" and runs off, and like,
and then you see a head pop out of the
and then
ground.
hard cut to Bruce Campbell.
Campbell.
He gives the girliest scream I've ever heard.
And then
Wouldn't you?
that's when Henrietta was saying,
Yeah.
"Someone's in my fruit cellar. Someone with a fresh soul."
Also, Henrietta might also be played by Ted Raimi.
she's
Oh,
definitely
definitely
Ted
Ted
Raimi.
It was
Okay.
a dude.
Yeah.
It was definitely a dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he
Okay.
scrambles up the stairs. And,
This part was like the most hilarious, but also kind of terrifying to me as a kid when I watched this because like creepy grandma
Oh, I
breaking
know.
out of the floor. I'm just like, ah.
dude, like just like the only way out is locked,
Uh-huh.
and like you're wanting to people to hurry up, and I was
Oh,
like,
that was hilarious.
I'm
They're
like,
trying to find the key. Like, it's
yeah,
right
like
here
that-
somewhere.
I like
that,
that
that
it's-
got me.
Grandma slowly crawling up behind me. He's like, ah!
It's like, come to sweet Henrietta.
And then she reaches out, and you see hands grab his head.
Oh,
and
Full of
they
soul,
pull him up
which
by
is
the
great.
head.
Which is great because the hands are supposed to be Jake's, but once again, since that particular scene was filmed way later, those hands belong to Ted Raimi.
We assume they're probably
No,
kids.
those ones actually are. That one
damn.
actually is confirmed. And there's this big running joke where like Ted Raimi apparently has poor hygiene. And he doesn't cut his fingernails because there's multiple times in the movie where you see just hands, and those hands are Ted Raimi's.
Uh-huh.
And almost every time
They
that
have long
happens, he
fingernails.
gives someone like a huge scratch by accident. Like apparently, he gave Bruce Campbell like a massive scratch on the side of his
That's
face.
kind of hilarious.
I know. But anyway,
so they
They
pull,
pull
him
him out.
and they all understand. It's like, okay, we're dealing with some serious shit now.
Mhm.
And oh god, what happens next?
They go to close it, but Henrietta's there, and she's trying
Oh,
to force
yeah.
him
And
out.
they're like jumping on it, like trying to close it.
And that is that when the Henrietta changes and says like,
Not
No.
quite yet,
Oh, wait.
because
there's
she
this-
tries to get out, and then Bruce Campbell jumps on it. It squishes her head, and her eyeball flies out.
Right into Bobby
yeah.
Joe's mouth, who's screaming, and it's great. And I think
yeah.
this is where Fred McGee
yeah, this
goes
is where it
dead-eyed.
starts. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
like,
We are the things that were and shall live
Yeah.
again.
I think because he gets knocked in the head at some point.
He gets bit by the
knocked
scratch or
out.
something.
And, he was trying to help stop Henrietta. Like they just pretty much
that's
put
right.
Ash to the side. So like he's helping Jake, and then like Henrietta just like backhands him, and he hits like
That's
his
what
head
happens.
through a frame, so the frame lands around his neck like a cartoon
Like a
almost.
cartoon.
And then Ash is like, okay, I guess I gotta help. And then
No, well, yeah, because like Jake is doing something, and then Annie is like standing back by the door, and he's standing with her, and then he like runs off, and she's like, "Help us, you coward!"
Yeah.
And then like 5 seconds later, he comes back with an axe and starts like
Starts
chopping him
wailing
to
on
bit.
Fred.
And green blood is going everywhere.
Mhm.
And if I had to guess, I bet it's because like too much red blood was going to make them like rated X or something. Because that
Probably.
definitely happened with the first movie where they had
Yeah.
to cut things out so it wouldn't be X.
Which was a shame. Which is so many of movies that would have been amazing back then are kind of kneecapped.
like
I think
a lot
this
of
would
the
be the
Friday
time.
the 13th.
This would be the time we should talk about how shitty that system is.
It really is. This much blood is okay, but this much
This
blood,
was-
oh, you're gonna
yeah.
turn
And
off
God,
the youth.
and God forbid
Yes.
there's a boob in your movie.
Dear God.
Exactly.
Now, if it's a prosthetic old lady demon boob,
Oh,
that's
that's
okay.
fine.
Well,
That's
just,
okay.
yeah, and that's what drives me nuts because, like, even for the Friday the 13th, they're like, you can beat the body into the tree once, but if you do it 3 times, you're getting an
Well,
X
as
rating.
that series went on, they would cut out the things even less. There was, I forget
Yeah.
which one it is. It's the one where he like spears 2 teens through the bed.
Oh, that's part 2.
Yeah, that scene is on the back of the VHS. Like it shows that, but it cuts it out in the movie.
Well, it's like I
like,
love.
what?
I love when you like hear interviews with Tom Savini about those movies where
They
he's
cut
like,
out his best shit.
well, because it's like it's weird because the better I do, the less gets put in the movie.
Talking about
Oh, that
man's
makes
hands.
me think of like
Yes.
My Bloody Valentine. How one of the coolest kills is the body in the dryer,
Oh, yeah, I love that one.
and it's like that just gets taken out
Well, like in that-
until like 2005.
In part 1, or the first Friday the 13th, it was Savini's hands for the mom. He's like, I'm just hoping they didn't
When they
notice my
grabbed
hairy
Kevin Bacon.
knuckles. Because like when they cut off her head and she's doing this,
Oh, that's good.
and I was like, I don't know what it is about men's hands. I
I-
have to be.
Yeah, I was like, wow, Pamela's hands are very mannish.
Yeah, manly.
Because I
love
was
that
thinking
scene so
of that
much.
one scene when it was like Kevin Bacon, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden here comes a hand. I'm like, oh, it's a dude, obviously.
Obviously.
Kill her, mommy.
All right, so we should get back to it.
Back to Evil Dead 2.
So they kill Fred. They dismember him.
Aw,
Henrietta's
I like
still in the
Fred a
basement.
lot.
You know, I got a hypothesis why it was green, because you know he was a bug and he was bugging me when I was watching this movie.
Liam, man.
Anyway,
So that's just a theory.
Anyway.
I
so
have a
this is
theory.
when Bruce Campbell kind of gives his spiel about what he's been through at night, and everyone kind of listens, and they're like, "Man, sorry for rock you so hard earlier."
Sorry
I-
for
do they say sorry? I don't
No,
think
no one
Jake
says.
that.
Well, it's funny because they don't say sorry for knocking him out, and he doesn't say sorry for shooting her. Because I think at this point everyone's like, "Yeah, no, it's totally cool. I get why you make that mistake."
So this is where the evil is trying to get in at some point. Like they're looking all over. Like it's a great shot of like him and Annie, and their heads are just going like to the right, to the left, down, up.
It focuses in on parts of the cabin, like one of the ceiling beams, and you hear a horrible creaking noise.
And they're like, it's trying to get in, and then they eventually gets into one of the rooms and like creaks the door open, and they're like, well, we gotta go check it out. And Jake and Bobby Joe are like, fuck you.
I'm not going in.
Like they say one of my favorite lines where it's like where Ash is like, we're gonna go check it out, and Jake's like, hell no, you're the curious one.
So he and Annie go in, and they take a lamp with them, and there's nothing there. And so the other two show up, they kick the door in, and they're like,
No, he doesn't kick
like
the
they
door
were
in.
so scared.
It's even dumber than that. The door is open, and like you need to have a noise because there needs to be a loud noise for them to turn around. And like you could tell they tried to edit around it, but Jake obviously like jumps in the air and smashes his legs down on the floor.
He does do that, you're right.
Kicks it.
And so they're holding their heads. Sadly, everyone's like scared because like things start going crazy and the noises go everywhere. And then we see a hand and a weird face coming through. Ooh. And it's Annie's father.
It's the soul of Annie's
Who's all
father.
like, help me free my soul from this prison. You
Save
must
my
read
soul.
from the book. You must do the
Finish
opposite
the
of the
opposite,
mummy.
yeah.
And they're like, well, that seems like a good plan. Let's do it. And then he's like, okay, bye.
And then someone freaks
Bobby
out.
Joe is like, what's his name?
No, he freaks out. Well, because it's great because they freak out at first, and he
Jake.
drops the lantern, and
Yeah.
the lantern goes out.
No, that doesn't happen yet.
Well, because smart, because that's the.
No, that's
because
right
Bobby Joe
after.
is
Oh,
like,
damn it!
you're
You're
holding
right.
my head too tightly. He's like, but Bobby Joe, I'm not
not
holding your hand.
hand.
And they all like slowly look down, and it's Ash's hand, and they're like, ah! And then they all freak out, and then the lantern is dropped.
Decapitated hand, I want to add.
It's not decapitated.
It's not
a
the
hand.
Amputated, my bad.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
You could
Yeah.
even go with severed, maybe.
Severed.
but
Ash's
just- but
severed
deca-
hand. I
We
just
are
wanna,
very
just want to
specific
clarify. It's like,
About our gore terminology. here.
my bad.
We are
Sorry.
professionals,
This
and I
is your
expect we
cat,
act as
And
such.
then your decap.
Oh my god!
Oh, you
That's fine. I did.
I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, the light goes out, and then when they get the light back on, Bobby Joe is gone. And they're like, "Well, shit, she's probably dead." And then it cuts to her freaking and running out of the cabin.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where we get our homage to the first movie, where the angry molesting trees.
No,
They
they
don't
don't.
molest
Was
us.
it they
I
don't?
know.
They
I
don't
was
go as
waiting for
far.
it, but no.
Which the first time I watched this movie, I'm like, oh, is this that movie? Is this that movie? And then it doesn't actually happen.
Which I think in the first movie they only did it because they were intentionally
You
trying to
say
be as
molest,
shocking
I
as
say
possible.
rape.
Yeah,
Full on
yeah,
rape.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, it's
definitely
pretty bad.
Whereas in this one, it's just like wrapping vines around her,
Yeah.
going through her face in a really
Yeah.
cool
I
effect
know
as it's
that-
dragging her.
That was pretty creepy.
Well,
And
you
then
get one of my favorite cuts in the whole movie where like she's being dragged through the woods at like insanely
Yeah.
high speed. And she's like flying towards a tree,
Yeah.
and right before she hits, it's hard cut to like the
Smashing
picture frame
it.
smashing on the table.
And just casually flicking away the glass and picking out the new pages. So
I
she's,
love,
she's
I love how
definitely
careless
dead.
he was with his one hand, just grabbing the glass like.
Swinging all around.
Ash is long past the point of caring about getting
To be
injured.
fair, that's probably the least painful thing
Yeah.
that's happened to him that night.
And so they get the pages and they start looking it over and talking amongst themselves like, we could do this, we got to do this. And then Jake
Yeah.
is not like, fuck you guys, I got the gun now.
Well, yeah, because the whole time they're going through the pages, he's like, "We got to go out and find her," and then
and
Ash
Ash
turns
is
and
like,
says,
I promise you she's already
"Yeah,
dead.
if she's in
Baba Joe.
if she around those woods, you can forget about her."
She's already dead.
And
Forget
so
about it.
He grabs the gun and he's like, we got to do this. And he's like, no, the only way we can do this is with the pages. And he grabs up the pages and throws them in the cellar just to be a dick.
Just to be a dick.
And he says,
He
now you
wants
got
to-
no choice.
So, did we already miss the part where Annie and Mom were having a little dear old talk?
Where they have, ooh.
Yes.
I don't remember when that happened.
Yeah, that
I think we
was.
did.
That
Yeah,
was,
because-
that was before
yeah.
Bloody Mullet.
Yes.
Yeah, because because Henrietta was down in the basement.
Because
Henrietta-
she drops their guard and then
Yeah.
Fred jumps up and
Yeah.
scares them.
Okay, so pretty much Henrietta, it just shows that she
'cause-
carries the same memories as or
It's the Deadites are like using
Yeah.
them to like get into your personal.
It's really The Exorcist. This particular
Yeah.
scene.
and then okay, so fast forward back to
They-
Jake
they-
and the
they-
gun.
They all go outside. he kind of like knocks Ash off the porch because
'Cause he's
like,
dick.
yeah, he's taking his time, and then it's like, oh my god, she goes to him,
You
and-
brute.
you vicious brute.
No, you stupid fool.
Is it possible to say the word fool in like nowadays and like not sound like a total dick?
Well, no, it's funny.
Fool.
Well, no,
I
it's
laugh
funny.
if you would
Yeah.
say
It's
that
funny
to me.
because like it's come to this weird point where if someone calls me a fucker, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But if some random on the street called me a stupid fool, it really upset me for a
You'd,
while.
like, you'd be taken aback. You'd
What
be
the
like,
fuck
oh,
did I
that's
do?
There's an impact with it. Like you could call anyone like a cuss word, and they'll be like, yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
whatever. Yeah,
But
I
it's
said
like,
that to my kids this morning.
yeah, it's like exactly like that. But it's like you clod. Then you
the Mike and D Silent podcast does not approve of calling your children fools. So
Unless they're cool.
Yeah.
If your kids are cool, you can do that.
What
So-
else did they name their kid Fool?
that'd be hilarious.
Well, because they say that, but there is a character in
Fool.
JoJo who's just called the Fool, and it's the
God
coolest
dang it,
thing ever.
JoJo. So
All right.
they're going out
All
into
right.
the forest, and Jake basically starts panicking because he knows, like, you can tell he's kind of figuring it out. Where he's like, Baba Joe, Baba Joe.
And I think they try to like kind of like shake him out of it, and then he takes the shotgun and once again knocks Ash the fuck out.
and punches her.
Poor Ash.
And then is this where Ash goes all dead
Yes,
again?
because
he
it
pops
seems like
back up and
it
is
seems
like,
like
hey!
the rule is if you're unconscious, it's easier for them to get you.
So they're all like, holy shit, and then they start running away. Like, he picks Jake up, smashes his head
Oh,
first
yeah.
into a tree, enough to break the tree. And then Annie's all like, I'm out, runs
And she
back into
runs
the
back into the
cabin,
cabin.
closes the door, and Ash is like pounding on the door, and he's like, and then he like goes back around and looks away.
He's overselling it like crazy. It's
Yeah.
the best.
He-
Like
he's
every
great as the
every
Deadite,
other
yeah.
Deadite, it's just kind of like generic demon stuff. But then you see him turn. He doesn't even talk, but you see him turn his head and everything. It's the best.
And
He
he
looks
did-
very
and
ponderously about
Yeah.
things like,
And he's so creepy. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Like they did so well on the
It's-
makeup.
And now we follow Annie as our main character for a little
Yes.
while because she like takes a good bit of time to go through the cabin to like make
yeah.
sure she doesn't die, and then
Finds
she
the dagger.
She does find the dagger. She gets to the back door where Ash is trying to get in at some point. Because
Oh,
does
yeah,
he try to
he's-
get in first?
He's
Yes.
been trying. Yeah, he's tried the windows,
He's
the
so
doors.
slow about it too because he's like,
Yeah.
rah, and oh wait, no,
Oh,
it
it's the
does happen.
screen door. He
Yeah,
grabs the
well,
screen door.
What
off.
happens first is she's
No,
waiting
that's
at the back door, hearing the noises, and then when the door opens, she's like, run!
And she
stabs
stabs right in the.
Yeah.
right into Jake's overalls.
Right in
and
the-
she's like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
I'm
Oh, no.
sorry.
I
And
forgot
he's like,
that's-
ah.
And
If
again,
this
he's just kind of
was-
like, oh damn it.
And it's a stab that it's not like I'm sorry. It's like you just fucking murdered me. Stab.
Right in dead center of the chest,
chest,
like
yeah.
4 inches deep, and he's just like, ah.
And he pulls her around. He's crawling around a little bit, and it's great because then Ash shows
Yeah,
up, and
he's
she,
at the door.
her first,
That's
the first,
that was the thing that cracks me up about the like when he's running to get her at the door. Like you see from her point of view, and he's like right outside the door. And then when you see his point of view, he has to go through the screen, and you're like, "Oh my god!"
Well,
It was
before
almost-
that, even
Oh,
she's
okay.
smashing the door, and
Oh,
he's like,
oh, yeah.
she smashes him on like
Jake
his
is
head,
there.
and then she pulls him in a little bit, and then she starts smashing it.
Like
She's
if
smashing
this was
his
a,
feet,
if
pulls
this
it
was
some
an
more.
online game, you see like minus 50
Minus
teammate
50,
damage,
minus
minus
50,
50, minus 50.
Oh, and then she, the one that gets me is she slams on his ankles.
Oh yeah, like
He's like, "Ah."
like she pulls him in or further, and then like doesn't get it all the way in, so she smashes the ankles. And I'm like, oh no.
And like Ron said, we're seeing Ash this entire time, and he's like, he would have been there like 5 minutes ago,
Yeah,
easily,
man.
but he's just like, like flailing around, being weird.
Well, it's funny because they all kind of obviously they kind of still keep the traits of the people they possess. And
so it's Ash's
so
culture.
it's still Ash in there somewhere, and that's why that demon is kind of a putz.
Oh my god!
See, that's what I'm saying. I can't tell if the Deadites are an actual threat or not, or if they're maybe just as goofy as he is.
Yeah, because when they're in anyone else, they're threatening, and of course they have the same memories. And all these other characters are kind of 2-dimensional, so you don't really see it. But when it possesses Ash, it still acts like Ash.
Henrietta's got a lot of
And this-
personality.
That is true.
And this is where like one of my favorite parts, right? Is where Jay gets
she
into
pulls,
the cell.
she
Yeah.
pulls him through, and he's like, "Ah, you're pulls out the
like,
knife."
Yeah.
I can't breathe, and I'm like, oh,
He's like,
okay, she
yeah.
got a lung.
Yeah, you're done.
And
Yeah.
so
Dude.
she eventually pulls him into like the main room of the cabin, and then she goes to do something. I think look at the pages for a second, and then you hear the
Henrietta.
door.
Yeah.
the cellar pop open. He's like, ah! And she grabs him and starts pulling him under.
And it's worth mentioning that it's still chained, so it's not even really big enough for him to get
Right.
into.
Yeah.
And then he starts pulling him down, and Anna's like, no, I'm gonna grab you. And she grabs onto his legs, and like this is where we see another hydrant of
Fire
blood.
hose.
That is my favorite part of the
I
movie.
know, and I'm just like, within 1 second, I'm like, Annie, you don't want what's on the other side.
Don't, just stop,
Just
man.
let
Just
go.
let it go.
Like, as soon
Oh,
as
it's
you
great.
see it, there's enough time for you to pull away.
And I love this particular one so much because the
Oh,
blood in
shit.
every other scene is like really thick and syrupy,
Yeah.
like blood.
Like, even
but,
that,
this, but this is obviously like Kool-Aid. It's,
It's so
it's even
awesome.
foaming. It's the best. I
Yeah.
love
It's
it.
the best.
And this is another part where the blood doesn't make any sense because she's like sitting there when this is happening, and then when she finally lets go and stands back up,
She's fine.
Totally,
She's got
there's
she's got a little bit of
spots,
blood
like,
on her
over here.
shirt,
It's like,
and then
nah.
the big puddle on the ground is gone.
Yep.
the
And,
best.
and then she's like, oh my god, what am I going to do? And then Ash is like, hello,
Hello.
I'm back.
Mhm.
And so they start fighting a little tussling, and he knocks her the
Yeah.
fuck out.
Mhm.
And then he's about to wreck her day when he sees the amulet
Oh.
of Linda, his GF, on the ground.
Which, in a cool callback to the original,
It's in the
it's
shape
laying
of
on the
a
ground.
skull.
Yeah, the chain makes the shape of a skull.
He lifts it up, and he almost has a Linda moment where he just like shouts to the heavens. And
You can really see him fighting it at this point.
yeah, I make fun, but like the acting actually is really good.
Mhm.
Like
It
even
really
through
is.
the prosthetics, where you could tell like he's like. But so apparently, true love is a cure for deaditism. That's good to know.
I like to think that
See,
he built up an immunity to it
Mhm.
because, like, he's possessed the first time, but then it's driven out by the sunlight, and maybe his body. It's weird thinking of it like a disease, but like he's a little stronger for it. That's why he's able to fight it. So much better than everyone
and
else.
the Deadites, like when they possess a dead body, it's a certain
It's
way.
complete, yeah.
And then like when they possess like the human, of course, like the soul's still there to
and
fight.
it takes a while for it to
Yeah.
like actually take effect,
Take
which
effect.
is why
Except
it seems.
for Fred's case.
Well, that's the thing, though. That's the
He
thing.
was weak.
That's the
He
thing,
was
though,
weak.
is like it seems like it has an easier time possessing you, like if you're unconscious.
Yeah.
Because the first time Ash is possessed is after the car accident and he's fucked up. Mm-hmm.
So-
minus the deterioration. Deadites would
Okay,
be cool. You
let-
get to fly.
To be fair, we're talking very specifically about this. Throughout this whole entire series, the rules are very inconsistent.
The rules
Yeah.
are the
Because
loosest.
in the
That's
first
what I
one,
love
we're
about
told
it.
it's like, oh, you could only kill these things by dismembering them or using the dagger. He's killing things with like shotguns in the Army of Darkness and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, they actually do mention that in Army of Darkness when a bunch of knights think they killed one, and he's like, "All right, grab an axe. It's not dead yet."
No, well, he does like he does say that, but then there are other times in the movie where he just shoots them and they're
Well,
dead.
well, again, they get away with it because he's using a shotgun, the rip and teariest gun out there,
It's called the boom boom stick.
the
It's
boomstick.
called my boomstick.
Yeah, boom
Yeah,
stick.
primitive
Smart.
oats.
And his smart. And his other weapon is a chainsaw, so he doesn't have to worry about it. And it does come up a lot in the show. There's actually like when you watch the show, there's lots of really like emotional,
I can't
gut
wait to
tearing
watch it.
scenes
I'm
where
gonna
like
watch it.
they
So good.
someone turns into a
So
deadite and they
behind on
kill him,
everything.
and then you get this heart wrenching scene where Ash has to turn to one of the characters, like say it's their family member, or friend, or whatever, and be like, "All right, you probably don't need to see this," and he turns around and revs up the chainsaw.
Oh, that's good. It's great. So he's back and having a good time, and then Annie starts axing the shit out of him.
I know.
I
Like,
did.
look at the
You
eyes.
did
I
do
did.
it, Jesse.
I'm
I'm
so
proud of you.
proud of
I
you.
know. So this comes up a lot in horror movies that I could use that pun if I wanted to.
So what?
Because axes are scary.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, he like he
Smash
barely
on the
dodges it, and
floor.
he's just like, "I'm all right. Holy shit, I'm me again."
Well, I love it because he grabs her and he's like, "It's okay, it's me," and she calms down a little
Yeah,
bit,
and then he like
steps
rests against
back,
the wall.
and then the axe goes flying.
Yeah,
through the
I know.
wall.
That was funny.
I was like, how can you miss twice?
she's she definitely wouldn't be on my
It's me.
squad.
I'm
Are
fine.
you listening to me? I'm all right.
It's fine.
Fred was more of a reliable source than her.
And so then they're like, "Okay, it's just you and me now. We got this. The only way we can end this is with the pages. So now it's time to suit up because we got to get in that cellar with the greatest scene of all the scenes."
Grab takes the chainsaw. He does stuff to it that doesn't make sense. What is he soldering to the chainsaw?
They have like shackles, kind of that they like break in half and like meld together, and then put that on the end of it, and they
No,
put that on
but
the
he,
end.
no,
of
he
it.
does
he
solder-
specifically
he
soldered
solders-
some sort
yeah.
of wire
He
to the
does.
chainsaw for no reason.
He does.
It's
I'm
probably
sure there's a reason.
it's probably some sort of mechanism where you can just
so he
go
can
like
use
this
it.
or
It's-
something.
Yeah, because later he does go like.
Yeah.
Well, no,
It's
'cause-
neon
no, but he
lights.
has it already because he's got that hook on
Yeah,
the thing that
that's
he
right.
slides the
Yeah.
ripcord in.
Well,
It doesn't
remember,
matter.
it doesn't matter. It's
Yeah,
this movie.
It doesn't matter. It's great.
Dude,
So-
best montage.
So they make that, and then
I did
it's
like
time to take that chainsaw off, revs it, cuts off the end of the shotgun, does a
Breaks
little,
it over his knee.
does a
You
little
gotta
flip.
get the- you gotta
And
have
this
the
is, like,
sawed-off shotgun,
One of the
man.
only times there's actual
It's the best
music
way.
in the movie where
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like doing the little triumphant theme. He swooshes it back and puts it in a holster.
Badass.
Groovy.
Groovy. Best quote ever.
Best
He's
quote.
such a dork.
He's
I
such
love
a
him.
doofus. And dude, you need to watch the TV
I
series.
know.
That
So
that
good.
goofiness comes out so much more, and it's even better because he's super traumatized.
You guys- yeah. Were you guys
one
ever-
of my favorite things about season 3, he fights a Deadeye in
Ah!
a sperm bank.
Hey,
It's so good.
Yeah, we're not getting
Okay,
into specifics.
but hey, did you guys ever watch Xena or Hercules?
Yeah.
when
With
I
them
could.
in it?
Bruce Campbell's in it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know
yeah.
that.
Dude,
Okay,
Sam
all right.
was on
So
that.
you know what surprised me
Sam
is
shows.
you know the really shitty Disney movie. It's called like Sky High or whatever.
I love Sky.
All right, did you know
love
Kurt
Sky
Russell is in
Yeah.
it?
he's
Yes.
the
Did you know
kid's
Bruce
dad.
Campbell is in it?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's a gym coach.
I
And his
watched that movie a lot
superpower
as
is
a
yelling
kid.
really loud.
I literally could
So
talk
stupid.
for hours about School High. I love it.
Sky High.
Sky
or
High.
Sky High.
I love
I
Sky
love.
High.
I hated that movie.
Oh, I love
You
it.
did?
I don't like that.
Oh, I
anyway,
love it.
anyway, wait.
We're
Oh,
talking a
shit.
lot about other movies. So they're like, okay, time to go back into the
Good one.
cellar. He saws it open and kicks it in, and they look down and there's nothing in there. Like, okay, we're good. And so he starts delving in. She stays up top with an axe, and he's looking through, and he eventually finds. He pulls the curtain back and there's nothing, and then he gets attacked by the skeleton of Jake.
Yeah.
And we know it's Jake because
Because
he's
he's
still
got the
wearing
overalls.
overalls.
He's still wearing-
I love it. And so then he's like, oh shit. And then he sees that Jake has fallen on the pages, and he lifts the pages up, and they're soaking wet. They're dripping. They were like sitting in a puddle. And then when he comes back up into the top shot, they're totally fine. Like pristine.
Yeah.
Like dry as if they've been just found in the ancient tomb.
I do think that they do that as the joke.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so he goes back to the stairs and like tosses them up to Annie, who starts to try to read them. And then fucking Henrietta attacks
Yeah,
him, right?
from underneath the steps.
Oh yeah, she pulls him through.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great. And then we get some good stop motion with that later, where her head. Oh no! She picks him up first and is like floating and like twirling
Mm-hmm.
Annie around. And there's one point that's great because Ash comes out of the cellar, and then the Henrietta like looks at him and it goes like ah, and you see like a stream of sweat dripping out of the ear because inside that suit that she's wearing
Is
it's
probably Ted Raimi.
Oh, yeah.
Sweating his ass off.
There's this, I remember this behind the scenes shot of them like with their little like demon booties of like the weird like feet.
Mhm.
They like pull the silicone down and it's just like a gush into a bucket because it's that
They're
bad.
filming in the middle of summer in a hot ass school gym.
Oh, that must have been fun.
Oh god. Anyway, you get like a really great fight scene. I don't even want to say great because it's kind of
Oh,
lame,
it's great.
but it's amazing. Where like the head swoops down and then Ash swings his chainsaw and the head
Because at
swoops
this point
down.
she's growing like a giraffe neck.
yeah, and really
I'll
weird.
swallow your soul.
Swallow your soul, and eventually Ash gets the upper hand. No, because she starts singing that nursery
Annie
rhyme.
starts singing
Annie
because
starts
she
singing
was
the
sung
nursery
to
rhyme.
before,
Oh, yeah.
and this gets whatever is left of Henrietta to like be like
Turn around for a second, and that gives Ash enough time to lop off the head.
lop off the arms.
Arms.
And then the head is sitting there. It's like, I'll swallow your soul,
Swallow
I'll
your
swallow your
soul,
soul. He
swallow
steps
your
on
soul.
it. Swallow,
Swallow
this.
this.
Boom! Blows her head up.
Like that effect made me think how Power Ranger dies. That's how it looks like.
Did you notice that? Like, and it wasn't blood that was coming out; it was like red smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was cool though.
Yeah.
Just seeing like Ash
just-
turn around with like smoke hitting him from the side.
It's like this one moment to be a badass and not a dork.
Right. And they calm down for a little bit. It's also worth mentioning that like one little thing that happens throughout the movie is the trees are
Trees.
getting closer and closer to the building. It's
Because
slow. It's inch by inch.
the trees look really cool.
She got a chance to read a bit of the book before Henrietta attacked, and she wasn't able to finish it. And she tells that to Ash, and this caused a problem because whatever she read allowed the evil to take a physical form.
That's the idea, though.
Yeah.
You gotta have the idea is you read the first passage and that gives the evil physical form.
So you can kill it.
Yes, and what the book tells you to do is to use a portal to send it back where it came from, which is the past, I guess. Doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
Do you think that'll just fuck things up even more?
And
but anyway,
they also read another passage about like a hero back in time.
the hero,
Yeah,
and
where
it's
they show-
some weird.
I was
now
actually
this
thinking
is
about that.
yeah, this is before he does his transformation. But it's a crudely drawn, like cave painting esque thing in a book of a guy with a blue shirt and a chainsaw for a hand and a big ass
wearing a hat
and a big ass chin.
Well, she was also saying stuff like he was supposed to have defeated evil, and he's like, "Well, he didn't do a
very
fucking
good
good job," or whatever.
That's great.
It's a great part.
So it's foreshadowing for Army of Darkness.
So they're having a good time, and they're discussing. Well, no, actually, they're not discussing this because before they discuss this, all hell breaks loose.
They embrace for a second, and the cabin's like shaking its shit
because trees are beating their branches on it, and they're just like, "Oh shit!"
And
then they have all that exposition we just talked about.
Yeah.
One of the coolest bits where like the tree face pokes through the door, like one of the best animatronics I've seen.
It's this giant, creepy, bloody face with like other faces like in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's they're just like, "You better read it damn fast."
So he's reading it. Oh, you get this great scene where she doesn't see the tree, only Ash sees it.
Yeah, because
and you get this great streak of gray across
and
the
a
side of his
plant
hair.
besides him dies because it's that terrifying.
Because it's that terrifying.
He's just like, "Don't look,
Don't look, just
at
read
it."
the pages. And he does another little chainsaw fight with it. He gets wrapped up.
He gets grabbed by a hand,
stabs it in the eye with his chainsaw. It's
they're having a great time. And then she's reading the book loudly, and then you hear it, and you hear her go, "Ah!" And then she turns
around, and there's
there's
Ash's hand with the dagger in
like,
her back.
"Son of a bitch!" And
Ash's
he's like, "No!"
amputated hand wants to clarify.
It's the best.
And so she falls down with a knife in her back, and you think, "Ah, shit!" And then Ash thinks, "Ah, shit!" And then even the faces are like, "We won! Woo!"
Yeah, and like one of the heads like pops out, revealing like a giraffe neck, saying, "Victory's ours!"
This is why I say the Deadites are hilarious because they're just like, "Woo!
Oh shit, we did it!
I can't believe it!"
And
I gotta hand it to him. They did a good job.
But
with her dying breath, she gets the last few words out.
She gets
there.
the last few words out, and then she dies.
And then she dies.
And then the tree gets sucked into the portal, and Ash is like, "Well, right on." And then he goes over to her body and
like kind of mourns her a little bit, and then he gets up. And then the door just explodes open because the portal's still there.
he's like, "No, it's not there. Turn this thing off."
He's grabbing onto stuff, and like his car flies through a fridge. A bunch of stuff goes flying through the portal.
And then he eventually gets pulled out in a great looking effect.
Yeah, you can see the wire when he's getting pulled through. It's the best.
And then we have like a 2001 Space Odyssey moment where it's like trippy imagery, and he's just like,
him
"Whoa!"
flying
And
through the portal.
Christmas lights too.
I will say, like when I saw Annie die, I was like, you know what? They had to do it.
Yeah.
They didn't want to bring her ass back.
Anyway.
She's only ever been in one other movie.
Yeah.
I
It's a
wonder
shame.
She's actually like the only other good one.
Well, she stabbed Jake, and she about cut off Bruce's head like twice.
I meant like
that bitch. No, I know.
Anyway, and he goes flying
hate
through the
her
portal,
that much.
and you get this great shot where it's like blue sky. You know, you see a car.
Actually, it's
fly.
kind of like
I
tan.
love that.
Well, yeah, because I say
It's all
blue, but
dusty.
it's the color grading. They kind of mess.
I
with it
think
a
this
little
is
bit.
where they put their budget.
Yeah.
The car dropped
The car
from the
just
sky.
falls and smashes
Boom.
the ground.
And Ash is just like,
And then he lands like, well, no, because the shot's actually set up really
jumps from
well.
the side.
He does. It's kind of hilarious how cheap it is, but the shot's actually set up really well, where the car is like feet behind him.
because you know they only had one chance to do
Yeah,
that.
but then he is like in front, and he lands like right in front of the camera. I really like that shot.
And then you see a
And
bunch
then-
of knights.
Well, now you see the cast of Monty Python.
Oh yeah,
show up.
with their pumpkinheads. And they're, I assume each one of those knight costumes cost about $1.
Yeah, they were
'Cause that
pretty-
was-
They're like Halloween store level
Yeah.
costumes.
I
You can
saw
tell.
welding gloves,
Mhm.
like just sprayed on silver, and I'm like,
And so
I
they're
don't
all
think
like-
that looks like.
And
So like dozens of dudes gather around him and they raise their swords like, "Kill the Deadite!" And then they hear a screech, and then they look over and there's a big flying one coming
good
after them.
screech.
And they're like, "Back to the castle!"
They're all freaking out, losing their shit, and
And
not
Ash
missing.
is
Ash
just
just
like-
stands up, pulls out his shotgun, blasts it out of
Boom.
the sky.
Shoots its head right off.
And we're all gonna know that's the boomstick.
And then they all start looking back to him, and it's like, oh my god, it's the savior.
It's the savior.
Savior.
They start celebrating him, and this is when he finally dawns on him what's going on. He turns around and sees the castle, which is a great callback to the castle from the beginning, and an amazing matte painting.
Yep, it's pretty great. And then it's just a slow pan back as everyone starts
Of
getting-
him doing
and
his
he's like,
usual,
No,
It was-
not again.
And of course, this
So
is a
good.
setup to Army of Darkness, Evil
Which
Dead 3.
I really wanted to pop in right after I watched
Oh
this.
god,
God,
and it's
I
such
love it.
it's such a natural flow too.
Yeah, and
You ain't leading but two things right now: Jack and shit.
Yeah.
Jack left hand.
Yeah.
But that part with the, not to give away too much on Army of Darkness because we might visit that later. But that part with the girl or the demon in the in the store. Oh my god,
Mm.
that freaked me out.
What freaked me out even more was the eyeball on his shoulder. Not even
I
that
forgot
scene.
not
about
even
that,
not
yes.
even not even when it's like half out of
Yeah.
his body. Like that's gross, but whatever. But if it's the one eyeball, I'm like, oh fuck
I
that.
might have to watch this.
I love
soon.
that movie, and I love this movie. And
I
that's the
do
end
too.
of this movie.
That's the end of this movie. Roll credits there.
Oh.
An hour and 25 minutes.
Shit. So fuck it. It's a good ass movie. You should definitely go watch it.
Yes.
I fucking love everything about it, even the things that are bad. I love about it.
Okay, so I'm not the kind of guy who watches movies all the time, and I very rarely watch a movie over and over again. I watched this movie like earlier this month, like on the 2nd of October.
And earlier this year,
I watched it today for the podcast, and I'm gonna watch it again come Halloween because it's one of my must-do
Fuck yes.
Halloween
It's
watches.
So good.
It's
like I was watching it again, and just like not a second did I think of like, oh, I wonder what's on my phone. No, I was
dead in. I was dead in the movie.
Oh,
I do love this movie.
So what comes next? I guess we already.
Well,
gave
I
him
was
a-
gonna say like we could shoot shit for a while, and then if we don't have any more to shoot, we could go through our ratings and stuff.
We could talk more about like
Like what?
but I don't
Okay.
wanna, like,
apparently the
spoil
prosthetics
stuff.
changed the shape of Bruce
Okay.
Campbell's face,
Yeah, here,
according to him.
What was that Army of Darkness or
No, I
Evil
think
Dead
it was
2?
this one.
Oh,
If it was
really?
Army of Darkness, he'd have a really weird face.
Okay, without
Yeah, that one.
okay, without giving away spoilers to our listeners, what do you guys? What makes part 2 the ultimate Evil Dead movie, other than the other 4?
because the first one is super horror-y,
Mhm.
Or
and
other
it's
3, sorry.
and it has funny moments, but a lot of the funny moments come from like it being kind of
accidental
Yeah.
campiness. Yeah.
Whereas this one finds the perfect blend between both, and then Army of Darkness kind of ditches a lot of the horror and
goes
is like
straight to
mostly
comedy.
comedy.
Yeah.
Which is where the series goes from then on out, which I don't even think is a bad thing.
No,
I
I
don't.
don't. I don't.
It's a
like-
really good.
I'm not gonna lie. Every time I see Bruce Campbell in anything, he could be literally a ticket holder in the Spider-Man. I was rolling,
I still
laughing my ass off at that part.
I always get a big ass
Like-
smile on my face whenever he shows up in anything.
Anything. I know. Like they're literally, I can never take him.
He's one of the few actors, but again, you say that, but,
But
he's
then-
one of the
but
few.
yeah.
He's one of the few actors where he can be in a movie that's like a total 2 and elevate it to an 8 or a 9.
like
Yeah.
Alien Apocalypse.
Oh,
or whatever
God.
that one
That
is.
movie's- that
Where they're,
movie's
like, the
terrible.
praying mantises that
That
eat
movie
people.
that movie is terrible except when he's on screen.
Yep.
And well, there's another really good one.
My name is Bruce.
My Name is Bruce.
Oh, that's
well,
right.
that one's weird because it's a little meta and it's also a remake of a weirdly racist movie.
That's true.
Yeah.
Uh,
But again,
one
it's
of my
great with
favorite
him.
parts is like when the whole town's meeting. You also see the actor who played Jake in this one
And-
with the blacksmith from Army of Darkness, and they're
Well-
secretly a gay couple, and it's so good.
I was gonna say, speaking of Ash, one of the things I really love about this movie and the series as a whole is Ash's trajectory, like his character arc. Because in the first movie,
He's like a total upstanding guy.
well, yeah, and he's also boring as fuck.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
none of the
Yeah.
Bruce Campbellisms are really like showing.
Well, wasn't
like,
that his first movie too?
Yeah,
So,
he's-
it makes
yeah,
sense.
He's just total like white bread, uninteresting. You think he's going to be the one to die, so then it's kind of a twist when he's the one that makes it through.
Because wasn't he he was like Sam's roommate, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then that's how
pretty
they,
much
like,
everyone in the first movie. They
yeah.
just all went to the same high school,
High school,
basically.
yeah.
So in the first movie, he's like total background
Yeah.
dressing until he's forced to be like the protagonist and the
Mhm.
hero. And in this one, we start seeing more of his
Oh, yeah.
personality come out more, where he's kind of like a selfish dick every now and
Mhm.
again. And then in the Army of Darkness, he's really a selfish dick,
And
we're
they
all-
double down on it
yeah.
even more in the TV series, and I love it because it's
He's
not
an
just
accidental hero.
Yeah.
well, but he's not just a dick for dick's sake. He's also like it also makes sense. And then again, I know I keep talking about this series, but it's a really good series, and I
Yeah.
highly recommend you to watch it. it's definitely shown to you that, like, especially when he talks about his flashbacks and like the stuff that happens in the movies, he's like, I wasn't supposed to be like this way. I was supposed to get married with my girlfriend. We were supposed to go somewhere, and the act of him becoming more of a prick, because it's doubled down. Like, he is a
The first episode
he is
makes
a
that clear.
druggy asshole, womanizing piece of shit. But it's because he went through all this traumatic stuff, and he's still working at the store.
Yeah.
That's because he can't deal with holding
He
down
can't
one job.
move
He
on.
has to keep moving around.
And that's kind of like what I say of, like, Bruce is Bruce in a lot of movies. Like even in Xena, he was that same sort of character.
Yeah.
And then even in Bubba Hotep,
He's the same
he's
kind
that-
of- Bubba Hotep.
Or in
I love that
Burn
one.
Notice.
Don't
Yeah,
fuck
he was
with
in
me.
Burn
Was it a TV show?
Yeah.
Oh, I never seen that.
It was
Burn
a
Notice is
a
okay.
spy show that, again, would have
Alright.
been boring nothing if it wasn't for the fact Bruce Campbell was
Bruce
in it.
Campbell.
He
popping
does.
up
He
in Hawaiian
he
tops.
definitely lights up the whole
Mhm.
thing.
I-
So
I want to say one
Nathan?
of my favorite parts about this movie is like, out of all the horror movies, like iconic characters, they're all villains, but this guy is like a good guy, and then you have the Deadites, which are just awesome in general. So it's
Mhm.
like you have a balanced playing field, you
Mhm.
know. When it
I
comes
love
to
the Deadites. They're like the best world of like ghosts and zombies and
Which
like,
I love them
demons.
because most of the time their designs are pretty generic. White pupils and kind of a weird face.
But it's like a good generic.
Yeah,
because
but-
they are
but-
creepy.
but no,
especially
they-
in the first movie.
They balance it out with their personality, though.
I would say in the first movie the design is like genuinely creepy.
Yeah.
Like it's not
Creepy.
that the makeup is good, and in fact I think the makeup being not good kind of helps it in a weird
Mhm.
way.
Well,
Like, you
in
can
the
tell-
first
I-
movie,
I
it's
I
a
think
little
for
more.
its time, it was
Oh, yeah,
great.
Well,
yeah.
in the first
Like-
movie, it's a little more subtle. Where in the second one, it's obviously exaggerated.
Oh yeah, the faces get all.
Well,
over.
that-
it's like the movie makers' limitations
Mhm.
help them make it.
They
more
forced
iconic,
it to
you
make
know?
it more scary.
And I know-
Yeah, and I love that so much.
I know that
I personally kept ripping on a few of the effects here and there.
Oh, I love the
But
effects.
but that's the thing though. The effects are actually great. I just watched the Blu-ray, and there's a weird thing that happens when you watch new movies on Blu-ray, where they kind of loses some of the magic because the
Old
picture is
movies.
too clear.
Old
older
movies.
movies.
I got
Sorry.
what you meant.
The
And I
one
agree
example,
with
the
you
one,
about
the one
that.
exception being The Thing, because you actually notice like subtle things with the monsters and the lighting that you can't see when you're not watching the
I love-
Blu-ray.
Like I would
That
hold,
is so true, though.
I would hold this movie up as like a testament to like why practical effects are better for the most part.
Because
Yeah.
even if they're not good, like this movie is still gonna go on for a while. Whereas, like, I know you guys like the Conjuring movies quite a bit.
I don't.
Oh, I
Okay,
do.
you don't? Okay,
Yeah,
thank
no,
God. I
no,
thought I
like,
was the only one.
The closest thing I like to like any movies of haunted houses
Mhm.
or possessions and stuff like that
Oh, that
is
freaks
Evil
me
Dead.
out.
Yeah,
Like-
Oh, not me.
I
Like
love The
it,
Conjuring.
like
But-
I love The Conjuring,
my
too.
girlfriend has to like take me to
No,
go see.
I get
the-
you. I-
These kind of.
I get you. But what I mean, though, what I'm trying to say is, though, is like, those movies are fine, but I don't think they're going to hold up for anywhere near as long as Evil Dead has. Like, people are going to forget about those movies unless this universe thing takes off and it becomes Marvel
I-
It
size.
kind of already has.
Yeah,
I mean, not
I-
the Marvel size, but,
But you know what I mean, though, because like this is a movie that we'll remember, but like 2 generations down, I don't think as many
the
people
first
will.
I think
The
Conjuring
first one
was
maybe, but it's not going to have the
It
same
doesn't
oomph and
have-
effect.
the first one doesn't have a really memorable villain. Like we like her, but it's not like the Crooked Man where you like picture that in your head.
I haven't even
It's
seen
not-
that one.
Oh, it's
I,
great.
I've only seen
I-
the first one and then the shitty
was
Annabelle.
freaking-
Whereas the
sequel.
Deadites, you
I've-
remember.
I've only seen the Nun, so I can't make a judgment.
Are you
on
serious?
Yeah.
Well, then what are you
Then
doing?
what the hell are you
Conjuring?
talking about? You
because
can't- no.
I haven't seen it to make a judgment.
I'm
I
glad-
needed to clarify.
No, listen, I'm glad you clarified that because the first 2 Conjuring movies is the Conjuring.
The first
movies.
movie is fine.
The other ones
it's
are
nothing
spin-offs.
special.
I think it's special. I
It
think it was.
is.
I think
I
it was
think
a
it was.
throwback to the good haunted house movies
Yeah.
because it's about atmosphere and subtlety
And see,
over jump scares.
exactly.
I get it,
If
but
I-
still,
exactly.
there was. But at the same time, none of the scares were even that interesting, with the
Well,
exception.
they got the shit out of me.
Well,
the clap.
Yeah.
No, as I said, the 2 exceptions are the clap and the scene where she's doing the laundry.
And we're
all
not
of a
talking
sudden,
about the STD, right?
no.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, the sheet wraps around a shape, you know.
It's such a
But everything else about the movie was like whatever, and I didn't care about any of the
It's
characters.
such a difficult thing to talk about what scares you because it's
Okay.
like I can't tell you you're wrong. It's oh, you weren't scared, you were wrong. No,
Mhm.
obviously it just
Obviously.
didn't affect you. So
I will say like with like poltergeist like ghosts and stuff, I feel like that's true scare for me. Like I feel like the anxiety more in my chest watching those movies than like slasher movies or something.
Well, I guess that's something about me though. Is that anxiety you talk about? I don't feel that when I'm watching horror movies. The closest thing is like I don't like jump scares, and the closest thing I could think is like, oh, there's gonna be a jump scare here, and it's not like a good fun feeling anxiety. The only time I feel that really is when I'm watching a movie that's not even a horror movie. Like,
What about the first Alien?
I don't know, to me,
Because I would say that one works like
that one
when
yeah, you're right.
towards the end when she's running through the hallway and like you hear like the other crewmates dying and it's just like flashing lights, like heavy breathing, and it's just like you could be around any corner. Does that like make you sit there and go, it's like, oh, it's just gonna be a jump scare? Because for me, when I'm sitting there in that scene, it's oh fuck.
Well,
What's going to happen?
Well, when I was a kid and I first watched it, maybe, but after that, like it almost exclusively became, look how cool this movie is.
Well, yeah, it's very cool.
But that's the thing. The only time I feel that anxiety is like when I'm watching movies that aren't even horror movies, like the Russian roulette scene in The Deer Hunter.
That's very good.
Yeah, that's good.
And or like the
I feel
you go ahead.
You go ahead. No,
or like any of the times oh shit, what's his name? Short guy. He's in all the gangster movies. He was one of the home invaders in Home Alone.
I don't watch Kings.
Joe
Pesci.
Joe Pesci.
Joe Pesci.
Or like
Never
any
mind.
Joe Pesci scene in like Goodfellas or Casino. No, I get it. But he's great because he's like a small, unassuming man. But then when he starts freaking out on you, you actually start getting nervous. And it's great.
So okay, see, and I think I understand where you're coming from, Sid. It's like in your head, you. And I'm not trying to like be a therapist to you about or anything, but I feel like you don't like when you say I don't like horror movies. I think it's because you immediately don't feel yourself in that position. Like when I'm watching a horror movie, a lot of the time I get lost in it. I get lost in the characters.
You're thinking on like a meta level where it's like
this is actually I'm
it's like
in
a
here.
musical scene where it's like and the beat comes now.
Well, and then that might be part of it because I don't know about you guys, but I feel like everyone I talk to that really likes horror movies, they always have some sort of paranormal experience, or it's like, oh, it reminds me of the time I saw that ghost when I was a kid. And I personally haven't anything like I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that. And I guess I shouldn't say I never feel it.
The other people I know that like horror movies are people who are like will scream their heads off at any jump scare and think Slender Man was the greatest movie ever made and stuff like that.
Exactly. But what I'm trying to say is
the Bye Bye Man.
I sometimes
I know.
I shouldn't say I never get
horror
that feeling. Sometimes when I'm watching a good slasher, like I guess what I'm saying is the only time I don't feel it is if it's something like a ghost movie.
And I would like to just interject
Yeah,
for a
go
second
ahead.
to say it's like if you like jump scares and that's what you go to horror movies for, there's nothing wrong with that.
It's a
It's
thrill.
just for me personally speaking, I'm more about atmosphere
Well,
than like blah.
Well, it's like,
Exactly.
I shouldn't even say I,
I
hate
wasn't
jump
trying
scares.
to be rude.
Because
But-
I don't like jump scares in horror movies, but if I'm playing like a horror video game, jump scares are the
love it.
best.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying, but they're like for jump scares. Like I don't like jump scares either, but at the same time, if they make the atmosphere sort of movie and can use a little bit of that jump
My
scare,
favorite jump
that's
scare
fine.
is from Alien, where
Spoilers.
they're looking for it with like the motion detector
Yeah, in
sensors,
the
and
vents.
he's crawling down the vent,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
looks to the right first, and then he looks to the left, and it's like, oh, it's just right there, and then it's done,
Yeah.
and you're just like,
Yeah.
holy fuck.
Like deserved jump scares are always the best.
Yes.
Oh, they're amazing.
And
Because
then-
they're the
and that's-
horror payoff, where you're just like, oh.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is like I just don't care about supernatural horror movies because when I watch something like The Strangers, I do kind of get that feeling. Or You're Next, I think would probably be a better example. I don't.
never
I
saw
see-
it.
Your next was more of a comedy to me.
I never saw that one.
But
So
I'm just trying to think though, because again, I don't care
only watch
about
Strangers,
ghosts.
that's what I
Because
said.
talking to my girlfriend and some of their friends, like half the conversations they have is, "Oh, I saw a ghost once," and it's like, but I don't think so.
I kind of know what you're getting at because like for me Supernatural it doesn't like make me want to go see the movie like, but for me the slasher films and home invasions like that for me that's like a oh yeah that's definitely a possibility before like
See,
ghosts
For
come
me,
by.
slasher films don't like get me at all, except for like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where the entire feng shui of that oh gosh,
No, you go ahead.
Oh,
I was
gosh.
gonna mention something else.
the whole like vibe of that movie. Well, I hope we do that one day. The reason that movie scared me so much is because I watched it very young, obviously, and because
Wait, don't give out too much
I know,
spoilers.
because because the cinematography and everything
Okay.
about that movie is designed to make it feel completely and utterly real.
Yeah.
It's like a documentary. Like everything feels gross and grimy. You can feel the
That's
heat of a Texas day,
literally what I felt.
and it
Like,
feels almost like a crime
Like-
drama
like-
that
like-
you watch on TV where
yeah,
it's
like an unsolved
and they were,
stories
yeah, and they
thing.
were never found, or
And
honestly,
honestly,
you're just like, oh shit.
And
I-
that's funny you say that because when I watched that as a kid, I literally thought this was like found
Yeah,
footage.
Yeah.
the
This was
kills
their-
were also really good in that movie because they weren't set up
They
like
weren't,
horror
and they
movies.
weren't over the
They-
top.
yeah, they were just like things that happened, if that makes sense. It's like not
Yeah.
like, oh, this mastermind is planning the schemes. It's just that he was
happened to
walking
be
by at that moment.
I know.
and
I
you
agree
happened
with
to be
you.
there
I
at
agree
that
with you
moment.
completely. I was laughing because we recently rewatched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Oh my god!
and I make this joke a lot, but like I actually
You had
I was
that family.
well, I know I was not so much like Leatherface, but the other guy,
Yep,
the
yep.
guy who's in the van.
Wire hanger.
Not to mention the fact that like I actually have a ton of family in Texas. Like, that's where half my family's from. So, and then I think back to when I was a kid, and like my cousin with his knife going, "Hey, Sydney," like digging into his thumb, and I'm like,
You have that friend?
but he's not my friend. He's my cousin.
it's like blood.
You're
a fucking cannibal.
But no, because that was actually made me the most uncomfortable. Of course, when it gets to the more cartoony stuff, like the dinner scene.
See, the dinner scene gets the fuck out of me.
No,
because of the
but
way
no,
it's
no,
shot.
it still gets me. But that's when because, like I said, there's a very specific feeling when you're just talking to the characters, and there's a weird, specifically the first time you meet the farmer, and he's kind of friendly,
Yeah.
but then he turns on her in an instant. It's that kind of stuff that reminds me of
that-
people I knew growing
I was
up.
gonna say that really gets me too because it's like that feels real. Where it's just like, oh, he's dropping the pretense. Oh god.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, see,
so
Anyway.
stuff like that gets me. But for supernatural stuff, it's like I don't feel excited to go in and
It's
see
like-
it.
it's like I
But
see
when
it-
when I
Oh,
do
I
see
don't.
it, and if it's like insanely jump scare based, like The Nun, then I get like spooked, and then 30 minutes later,
Honestly,
I'm
because like
fine.
I
But
see
then
it,
it's
and
like-
then like the minute I see that it's all ghosts, it's like I don't really care about ghosts. I guess.
I'm
Would
trying to
I-
think of
would
I
the
really?
supernatural movies that
I don't
have,
know,
like,
because
really
I
because
scared
have
me.
to
if
tell
you
you.
think
Yeah,
about
I'll have
it,
to get
I'm
back to you
watching
on
it
that.
the correct
Alright.
order.
But why don't we? Yeah, no, he's watching in chronological.
Oh
order.
my
I'm
God.
watching in chronological
Okay,
order.
so
Alright.
so yeah, so now we'll go ahead and do our ratings.
That
We'll
was a
start.
good talk.
That was a good
Yeah,
talk.
it would. No, it was
I
great.
enjoy it.
Jesse, you I almost said Jess.
Hi.
Hey Jesse, you're up. So go ahead and give your
so-
rating and.
I,
Say what you like.
I made this quip to Ron earlier where it's like, yeah, there's a lot of things wrong with this movie. The ADR is weird. There are a bunch of like continuity errors. Like there's if you wanted to pick this movie apart, you very easily could. But with a lot of movies, that's not the point. And as I said, if you love a movie, you know everything that is wrong with it because you care. You watch it and
But-
you notice the details.
And I don't mean to interrupt you while you're in the middle of giving your thing, but it's almost like a weird feeling because this is obviously some guy's passion project. He's filming it with his friends almost, so I'm more willing to forgive those flaws in a movie like this than I am in a movie like The Conjuring, like a big budget horror movie that should have all those flaws fixed.
Yeah. So
Fuck
yes,
man.
Muckman.
Now, Muckman gets no benefit.
So watching a movie is about an emotional experience and what you take away from it. And because of that, The Evil Dead had a huge impact on me. It's one of my. It introduced me to the realm of horror. It introduced me to the realm of Bruce Campbell. Like such a big impact on me. And I always like to compare it to things. And I would definitely say, if we're kind of call it by genre, it's my favorite horror comedy, hands down, no question. Nothing comes close.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 would fuck.
Boom.
Boom. All right, Liam.
Alrighty. Well, I couldn't agree with Jesse anymore. Like I love passion projects because it's one of the things that makes the movie business. It's not money. It's just seeing people actually care for the art.
Well, that's what it should be, and I think the problem is so more often than not, that's not what it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
more often than not, it is a money cash grab.
yeah, definitely. But like Evil Dead definitely doesn't feel like that.
No,
You
it feels
know?
like a passion project.
Yeah.
We watched a movie recently we watched Mandy recently, and it has that same feeling where obviously there's tons of flaws, but it feels like a passion project.
Mandy's so
So
I
good.
don't know a single flaw. What are you talking now, Ken?
I'm gonna have to rewatch it again.
We might do that for the
What
podcast.
flaw? Oh yeah,
that would
definitely.
be nice. Yeah, but like it was just so fun. And usually after I'm done watching a movie, I usually ask myself this question: was I entertained? And if I was entertained, would I buy a copy? And for this, yes, and I would buy several more copies than I already
three
have.
copies.
Yeah, see?
I'm
Yeah.
gonna throw it a bunch.
Like seeing this movie always puts a smile on my face. When I first saw this, it definitely made my whole school year so much better. Yeah, that was nice. 10 out of 10. If I could, 11 out of 10. But yeah.
All
Pass it on
right.
to Ron.
Okay.
This.
What?
What?
All right. Now, with this movie, it brings back a lot of memories. Of course, I was like, when it first came out, I would have been about 6, and I know I didn't watch it then. I think it was in the 90s when I watched it for the first time. But it is a great movie. I like pretty much all Bruce Campbell movies, especially with Sam behind the director's chair or whatever, behind the camera or whatever. But for this movie, for me, I honestly, just to go quick into the rating, I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10. Just for the simple fact is because, kind of like how Jesse said, like, you know, you give your 10s to like things that like move you, change your life. Even though I would be devastated if I never watched this movie again, I still would put a 10 on a different movie in my childhood, you know, like growing up, like Nightmare on Elm Street will get that 10, you know, stuff like that. But so I'll pass it on to the guy who recommended this great movie to us.
10 out of 10 for me too. Much like Jesse, and I think Liam said this as well, this is like one of my first real horror movies, I should say. It's actually weird though, because everyone's saying that this is the first time they've seen Bruce Campbell. It wasn't for me. I remember catching Alien Apocalypse on Sci-Fi Channel one day, and that was my first exposure. That was before I knew who Bruce Campbell was, and I didn't internalize who Bruce Campbell was. And the only memory I have on that is when the alien bites the dude's head off, and that terrified me as a child. I turned the TV off and ran upstairs. But yeah, no, this is just a great movie. It's introduced me to one of my favorite actors of all time. I think if I were ever to get into acting, I'd want him to be one of my inspirations. Yeah. It's probably a bad thing that all of my inspirations for acting are Nathan Fillion, Bruce Campbell, William Shatner, and Adam West.
That's amazing.
I think they're better than most.
Well, it's amazing, but I don't think it's going to get me very far today.
Yeah, they left a huge impact on the realm of cinema.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just don't have much more to say. We've pretty much taken care of everything I had.
I was going to also say that I think another reason why I always, like with this one, part 2, was always gets that 9. I hate to say it, but I've watched probably the Army of Darkness like more times.
Oh yeah, I have
because like when I was starting to get into horror, that was syndicated a lot. It was on Stars, Encore, like everything was.
Clips of Army of Darkness before I saw Evil Dead 2.
Yeah,
on Sci-Fi Channel, it's like, oh, they're fighting skeletons.
I saw Army of Darkness too I saw Army of Darkness first because it was like kind of the same thing. Like my parents, they knew about those movies and they're like, well, this one's not too scary, so I'll get this for my kid.
And then they were talking about Deadites in the book, and I'm like, I don't understand, but okay.
You know, the first one out of the trilogy I saw was Army of Darkness, but like it was. My family took me to a Halloween party and, you know, friends of the family, stuff like that. And one of them brought a bootleg copy of
was it the bootleg edition? Like those, because there's bootleg edition.
Yeah.
There's a Screwhead edition. There's a bootleg edition. They got so many editions.
Yeah, it was like they changed the intro to where like at the end of Evil Dead 2 when like Bruce is getting sucked into the vortex, that's when the title pops up, like Army of Darkness and stuff like that. And then it just cuts to him like falling on the Delta.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was
I actually
it
like
was
that.
cool way to see
It almost feels like a fan edit that became it is a good edit. It feels like a fan edit that became official.
Yeah, like I didn't know like what the Book of the Dead looked like in the third movie because it was like they changed the design on the third one because like that was like the intro I always remembered. It was like a hard cut to Army of Darkness.
All right. Okay. Well, right there. Okay. We'll go ahead and with a heavy heart say goodbye to.
Good night tonight.
Goodbye to one of our Padres. Sydney is actually leaving us for a little while.
Yeah, this is. I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break from the channel because I'm going to be moving. Going to be setting up shop somewhere else. I will be back as soon as I can, though. So it won't be too long. And luckily, I don't suspect I'm going to be missing too many good movies.
Okay, fine. I'm gonna save some of my movies in reserve then.
Ouch.
So yeah, it'll probably be three out of the 4.
Yeah.
There'll be 3 of us still doing it, and we might try to like sneak a little special guest in maybe here and there. But hopefully Sid won't miss too much. He's planning on getting his degree and being a pilot. He's gonna fly us around the world, guys.
He's gonna chase his dreams.
Yes.
Yep.
This is gonna be
All right. So.
But I think like once again, this is where our email section would go. That's mikeintheasylum4@gmail.com. That is mikeintheasylum4@gmail.com.
So who's picking?
Okay, so the next pick is actually. This is where we'll. Okay, so right now, our next pick is actually going to be our Thanksgiving pick.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, and what's our Thanksgiving pick? Go ahead, Liam. No.
Oh well, our I already messed that up. Hold on. Our Thanksgiving pick will be none other than the famous movie Thanksgiving.
Because there's so many Thanksgiving movies to choose from.
Exactly.
That's true.
Gobble gobble, motherfucker.
Spoilers.
Yes. And I'm really hoping that we keep this podcast going. Like it's definitely a passion thing. So like even next year, I'll probably stumble on another Thanksgiving movie and we'll throw it in there. But for right now, we are definitely doing Thanksgiving for this year.
I got a question. This is just to keep on talking. Okay. If you could make a holiday movie, a holiday murder movie, what would the name of it be?
It would depend on the holiday.
Just pick whichever holiday you want.
You're gonna have to give me time to think about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shit.
Darn.
For me, I would have to think of a storyline.
Yeah.
Because the storyline has to match the title, and you have to be creative.
And Santa's sleigh is already taken.
I was thinking a Star Spangled Brain Matter.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah, see?
Actually, we're going to stop right here. We're going to do a lot of editing. You know why? Because we forgot to do something right before we...
Contact us at Mike in the Asylum, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So
I don't remember the names, though, so somebody else.
Because we can't have it at the end of the thing. Okay, so at this point, we would answer...
questions,
emails, or whatever. As of now, we haven't received any yet. Of course, we're trying to build our audience.
Notice me!
So
somebody needs to fake it.
So definitely, you can email us at mikeintheasylum4@gmail.com or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. We do have pages on there, and we are also on YouTube right now. We are definitely putting our backlogs on there. So if you guys have any questions at all, even some critiquing, I don't care.
You guys suck.
Yeah. We're definitely new, and so of course we're just trying to hammer out all the kinks still. Yeah. And
I still suck at talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't suck at puns.
That's true.
You have a part at this table.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm here for puns alone.
So do we now want to do the Thanksgiving thing again?
No, I like the way you said it the first time.
Okay,
so now I'm just going to...
All right, so...
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
We're back.
Yes.
And we're going to leave now.
Yes.
So, thank you for joining us. This was a wonderful time. We'll hit you up next time with Thanksgiving. Yeah. And, have a good night, everybody.
Yep.
You guys
take
care.
Bye.